Today in this evening, we have gathered for a discussion, for a fruitful discussion on how to prepare a good research proposal. When we find our students and students from other universities come to us for getting a chance in research activities, we often find that they are not well equipped with a research proposal. And seeing this, it came to my mind that we should help in this respect to our students. And from that point of view, we from the Forum for Applied Philosophy have organized this special session on how to prepare a good research proposal. And we are fortunate that we have with us Professor Santosh Kumar, Dr. Prashant Sukla from Lucknow University, Uttar Pradesh, and also Dr. Sanjay Kumar from Kolhan University, Jharkhand. We welcome you all, and we are grateful to Professor Dr. Sukla and Dr. Kumar, Sanjay Kumar, for keeping our request and so that our students can be benefited for this purpose. This program will be conducted, and we have three main speakers. We first, I myself will first take the platform to speak to you, to say something which I have learned from my experience as a teacher, also as a research supervisor. এবং আমি এখানে যেটা বলতে চাইছি, যদি রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল মিনিংফুল করতে হয় তাহলে আমাদের আগে থেকে একটু সচেতন হতে হবে, এবং সচেতনতার সঙ্গে আমাদের প্রপোজালটা তৈরি করে তারপরে কোন একটি জায়গাতে, কোন একটা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে আমাকে ইন্টারভিউর জন্য যেতে হবে। অনেক ক্ষেত্রে সরাসরি তারা আগে থেকে প্রপোজাল চেয়ে নেন এবং সেই প্রপোজাল দেখে একটা শর্ট লিস্ট করেন, এবং যারা শর্ট লিস্টেড হলেন তাদেরকেই শুধু ইন্টারভিউতে ডাকা হয়। সেজন্য প্রপোজালটা কিন্তু ভেরি ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। ইন আওয়ার ইউনিভার্সিটি আমরা ওটা করতে সময় পাই না। আমরা যেটা নেসেসারি, যেটা রিকুইজিট কন্ডিশন, দ্যাট ইট 55% মার্কস in masters and also net set qualification, etc. And for the proposal, we actually আমরা সরাসরি তাদের কাছ থেকে যখন ইন্টারভিউ বোর্ডে আসে তাদের জিজ্ঞাসা করি যে তুমি কি বিষয়ে রিসার্চ করবে, তোমার প্রপোজাল কি, তুমি বলো। তারপর তার যে প্রেজেন্টেশন, তার মাধ্যম দিয়ে আমরা তাকে সিলেক্ট করি অথবা বলি তোমাকে আরেকটু তৈরি হতে হবে। যাই হোক, আমরা এই সুযোগটা নিয়েছি ছাত্রদের সাহায্য করার জন্য। হাউ টু প্রিপেয়ার এ রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল। এটা করার আগে উই শুড নো হোয়াট রিসার্চ ইজ। অনেকেই মাস্টার্স ডিগ্রি কমপ্লিট করে তারা বলেন যে তৈরি না হয়ে এসে বলেন আমাদের সামনে যে রিসার্চ করুন। কিন্তু studying or doing some degree in a course or doing research is something different. So research কাকে বলে, কেন রিসার্চের প্রশ্ন উঠছে, এগুলো জানতে হবে। এজন্য আমি প্রথমেই যে কথাটা বলতে চাইছি যে রিসার্চ হচ্ছে এমন একটা কিছু যেটা খুব সিস্টেম্যাটিক ওয়েতে আমাদের জানতে হবে, আমাদের আবিষ্কার করতে হবে, এবং তার জন্য যথেষ্ট প্রযত্ন এবং গভীর অনুসন্ধানের প্রয়োজন আছে। আমি দর্শনের শিক্ষক হিসাবে ম্যাড্রাস ইউনিভার্সিটির একজন রিটায়ার্ড প্রফেসর টিপি রামচন্দ্রন তিনি বলছেন, research is a critical investigation into a chosen area with a familiar field for the advancement of knowledge in that particular domain. অর্থাৎ ফিলসফিতে আমরা অনেক বিষয় পড়াশোনা করি। অ্যাকচুয়ালি মাস্টার ডিগ্রি পর্যন্ত আমরা ফিলসফির যত অ্যাভিনিউজ আছে, যত ডোমেন, যত ব্রাঞ্চ আছে, সেগুলো আমরা ছাত্রদের কম বেশি করে জানিয়ে দিই যে দেয়ার আর সো মেনি অ্যাভিনিউজ। উদ্দেশ্য যে পরবর্তীকালে যদি রিসার্চ করো তার মধ্য থেকে ইউ হ্যাভ টু চুজ এ পার্টিকুলার ডোমেন। এবং এই চয়েসের ক্ষেত্রে দুটো জিনিস খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট, দ্যাট এটা তোমার ভালো লাগা বিষয় হবে এবং যে বিষয়টার উপর তোমার যথেষ্ট দখল আছে। ইন জেনারেল একটা মাস্টারি আছে সেই ডোমেনের উপরে, তা না হলে কিন্তু রিসার্চ ঠিক পথে এগোবে না এবং এটা সার্থক হবে না। সেজন্যই বলা হচ্ছে ইট ইজ এ ক্রিটিক্যাল ইনভেস্টিগেশন into a chosen area. You himself have chosen that particular domain with a familiar field, and this field is familiar because you are well versed in this domain. And what is the purpose of doing research? This is very important for the advancement of knowledge in the particular domain. এটা পার্টিকুলার ডোমেনে তুমি কিছু যোগ করতে চাইছো, কিছু নতুন একটি জ্ঞান বিন্দু সেখানে যোগ করতে চাইছো। সেই জ্ঞান বিন্দুটুকু ছোট হোক বড় হোক যাই হোক না কেন, ইউ হ্যাভ টু অ্যাড সামথিং, এন্ড দিস ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট ইন রিসার্চ। But research is not always to discover new truths like that of Einstein or Newton. It may happen sometimes, but in most of the cases, our students or we, what we do mainly two things. That is, there are so many theories, so many concepts available in a particular domain I have chosen in philosophy, and we find that there is in a particular domain there is a research gap, or there is some misrepresentation, misinterpretation. It is I like to revise or correct that particular point of knowledge. So it may come either as a new truth, as discovering new truths, or by revising and correcting existing knowledge of truths in a new light. It is very important. It is very, very important to note that everything we live in the present, and we hope better for the future. So whatever we do, we should do it in a contemporary light. Let's say, for example, if someone thinks that there are so many right-wing political theories or political ideologies are coming here and now, and they are actually আমাদের একটা সাফোকেশনের মধ্যে ফেলে দিচ্ছে, so he can think of doing research on fascism or Nazism, etc. That means in a contemporary world, we should know the very past in where this type of things happened, and getting data from there we can understand the present situation. So we say that we can revise, we can suggest for revision or correcting some existing knowledge of truths, and it must be in the context of the contemporary times we live in. Another thing is very important in research, that is that it is mainly concerned with three questions. That is what, why, and how. What means actually it is actually directs us to ontology or to metaphysics in that domain. What is this? What do we mean by object? What do we mean by life? What actually is to be a human being? What questions very important? And also the question how how relates to epistemology. That is, you are speaking of something that this, and the question now will arise. That is, how do you know that? The question of knowledge. How do you know that? So this can be taken as how, and why questions is also important, because why should we live a good life? Why should follow a particular code of conduct? That is, why should we call it good? Why should we call it beautiful? So all these things are concerned with aesthetics, concerned with ethics. So philosophically important, and also why question repeats to our political behavior also. So these are the main research questions: what, why, and how. Research may be of different kinds, so many different kinds. আগে বললাম রিসার্চ বিভিন্ন রকমের হতে পারে, এবং সেই রিসার্চের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা লক্ষ্য করতে পারি যে প্রাইমারি রিসার্চ, সেকেন্ডারি রিসার্চ, অ্যাপ্লাইড রিসার্চ, ফান্ডামেন্টাল রিসার্চ, ডেসক্রিপটিভ রিসার্চ, অ্যানালিটিক্যাল রিসার্চ, কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ রিসার্চ, কোয়ালিটেটিভ রিসার্চ, কনসেপচুয়াল থিওরিটিক্যাল রিসার্চ, এন্ড এমপিরিক্যাল রিসার্চ। আরো অনেক ধরনের রিসার্চের কথা বলা যেতে পারে। এখানে যেটা মূল গুরুত্বপূর্ণ কথা সেটা হচ্ছে যে কয়েকটি কথা এখানে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। প্রাইমারি রিসার্চ যখন আমি বলছি তখন প্রধানত যেটা মিন করা হয় যে আমি যে ডেটাগুলো ব্যবহার করছি সেটা ফার্স্ট হ্যান্ড ডেটা। সেই অর্থে আমাদের ফিলোসফিতে প্রাইমারি রিসার্চের প্রশ্নটা একটু অন্যরকম। কিন্তু এখানে আমরা যে রিসার্চ গুলো করি সেগুলো যেহেতু বেশিরভাগ ক্ষেত্রে, মোস্ট অফ দ্য কেসেস, সেকেন্ডারি ডেটা ব্যবহার করি, সেই জন্য আমাদের রিসার্চ গুলো সেকেন্ডারি রিসার্চ বলতে হবে। তবে হ্যাঁ, কিছু মৌলিক প্রশ্ন সংক্রান্ত যে রিসার্চ গুলো হয় সেগুলোকে ফান্ডামেন্টাল রিসার্চ হিসেবে চিহ্নিত করা যায়। আর আরেকটা কথা এখানে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, সেটা যে ডেসক্রিপটিভ রিসার্চ, অ্যানালিটিক্যাল রিসার্চ। আমরা যখন মেটাফিজিক্যাল কোয়েশ্চেন নিয়ে আলোচনা করি, তার বিচার বিশ্লেষণ করার চেষ্টা করি, কি আছে কি নেই বিং সম্পর্কিত আলোচনা করি, সেগুলো সবই কিন্তু ডেসক্রিপটিভ রিসার্চ। এবং কিছু ক্ষেত্রে আমরা অ্যানালিটিক্যাল রিসার্চ করি, already given something, some data, some phenomena, and we try to analyze them, and from that analysis we try to reach at some particular conclusion. So সেখানে হবে সেটা অ্যানালিটিক্যাল রিসার্চ। তেমনি আরেকটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভাগ হচ্ছে কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ এন্ড কোয়ালিটেটিভ রিসার্চ। কোয়ান্টিটি মানে হচ্ছে পরিমাণ, কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ রিসার্চ বলতে বোঝায় যে ধরনের রিসার্চ, যে ধরনের রিসার্চের উপাদান এবং রিসার্চের সিদ্ধান্ত, যেটাকে আমরা ওজন করতে পারি, মাপতে পারি, আমরা কোয়ান্টিটি দিয়ে সেটাকে বোঝাতে পারি, যেটা 1.5 কিলো, এটা 500 গ্রাম, এটা 1000 মিলিগ্রাম, এইভাবে যেটাকে আমরা কোয়ান্টিফাই করতে পারি। কিন্তু ফিলসফি যেসব প্রশ্ন নিয়ে আলোচনা করে সেগুলো কিন্তু একটু অন্য ধরনের। সেখানে কোয়ান্টিটিভ প্রশ্নটা প্রায় অনেকটাই অবাস্তব মনে হতে পারে। আমরা যে কাজগুলো করি, যে কি আছে কি নেই, আমাদের মানব অস্তিত্বের অর্থ কি, জগতের ব্যাখ্যা কিভাবে করব, এই যে প্রশ্নগুলো, সেগুলো মূলত আমরা বলি কোয়ালিটেটিভ কোয়েশ্চেন। সেখানে আমাদের উদ্দেশ্য, লক্ষ্য, জীবনের অর্থ, এইসব বিভিন্ন বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে থাকে, এবং সেই জন্য আমরা বলবো সেগুলো কোয়ালিটেটিভ রিসার্চ। আর যদি আমরা বলি এম্পিরিক্যাল রিসার্চ এবং কনসেপচুয়াল রিসার্চের মধ্যে পার্থক্য করতে যাই, তাহলে যেটা বিষয় আমরা যেটা বললাম যে এম্পিরিক্যাল ডেটার উপর নির্ভর করে যে রিসার্চ গুলো হবে সেগুলোকে আমরা বলবো এম্পিরিক্যাল রিসার্চ। যেমন সোশিওলজি বা পলিটিক্যাল সায়েন্সের কেউ যখন কোনো একটা ঘটমান বিষয় নিয়ে রিসার্চ করছে, যে আজকে সমাজের এই যে চরম দুর্নীতি, এটা কি কারণ বা কি কি এর মধ্যে ফ্যাক্টরস রয়েছে, সেগুলো নিয়ে তিনি রিসার্চ করতে গেলে তাকে এম্পিরিক্যাল রিসার্চের মধ্যে করতে হবে। আমরা ফিলোসফির লোকেরা বেশিরভাগ ক্ষেত্রেই আমরা সেকেন্ড অর্ডার অ্যাক্টিভিটি করি, তো সেই জন্য আমাদের রিসার্চ গুলো বেশিরভাগ ক্ষেত্রে কনসেপচুয়াল বা থিওরিটিক্যাল আমরা বলতে পারি। অর্থাৎ এটুকু মধ্যে দিয়ে আমি যে কথাটা বলতে চাইছি যে ইন ফিলোসফির ক্ষেত্রে আমরা কি করি, মোস্টলি কনসেপচুয়াল আর থিওরিটিক্যাল রিসার্চ করি, এবং সেটা কোয়ালিটেটিভ হয় মোস্ট কেসেস, কেননা আমরা যেহেতু সেকেন্ড অর্ডার অ্যাক্টিভিটির সঙ্গে সম্পর্কিত। আরেকটা কথা এখানে বলার কথা, এগুলো সবচেয়ে এটা মনে রাখতে হবে, আমরা যখন অ্যাপ্লাইড ফিলোসফির কথা বলছি সেখানে কিন্তু আমরা প্র্যাকটিক্যাল ইস্যুস গুলোকে ইনক্লুড করছি, স্থান কাল পাত্রকে বিবেচনার মধ্যে রাখছি, এবং সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমরা কিন্তু সায়েন্সের কিছু ডেটা বা বিজ্ঞানের কিছু ডেটা, এম্পিরিক্যাল ডেটা গুলো আমরা গ্রহণ করছি। এবং সেদিক থেকে বিচার করলে অ্যাপ্লাইড ফিলোসফির ক্ষেত্রে আমরা বলতে পারি এটা কিন্তু পিওরলি কনসেপচুয়াল বলা যাবে না, এটা একটা মিক্সড, তার মধ্যে এম্পিরিক্যাল ডেটা আছে, কনসেপচুয়াল অ্যানালিসিস আছে, থিওরিটিক্যাল ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড আছে, কোয়ালিটেটিভ অ্যাপ্রোচ আছে, সব একসঙ্গে আমরা বলবো ফিলোসফি রিসার্চের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা সেই ধরনের কাজ করি। এখানে শুধু এইটুকুই বলা, পিওর ফিলোসফি মূলত সেকেন্ড অর্ডার অ্যাক্টিভিটি করে, সেখানে প্রাইমারি ডেটা বা আমরা যেটা এম্পিরিক্যাল ডেটার সংযোগটা কম, কিন্তু অ্যাপ্লাই রিসার্চের ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু এম্পিরিক্যাল ডেটাটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আমি এখানে একটি ছোট্ট কথা বলতে চাই। পিটার সিঙ্গার বলছেন যে এখন আমরা যে জায়গায় পৌঁছেছি তাতে করে আমরা কিন্তু যে কাজটা করতে পারি সেটা হচ্ছে যে পৃথিবীর দারিদ্র্য আমরা মুছে ফেলতে পারি। এবং এই দারিদ্র্য মুছে ফেলতে পারি কথাটার কি মানে এখানে দাঁড়াচ্ছে? এর মানে এরকম যে আজকের দিনে যেভাবে আমাদের কৃষিকাজ, কৃষির উৎপাদন যেভাবে বেড়েছে, হ্যাঁ, এবং সেখানে যেভাবে বিভিন্ন বিষয় জ্ঞান বিজ্ঞানের উন্নতি হয়েছে, সেই উন্নতি করার ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু আমরা বলতে পারি যে সেখানে আমরা কিন্তু অনেকটাই জায়গায় পৌঁছে গেছি যে সব মানুষের খাদ্যের ব্যবস্থা আমরা করতে পারি। কিন্তু এই বাস্তবতাটা আজ থেকে হয়তো 50 বছর আগে ছিল না, তখন কিন্তু এই প্রশ্নটা রেলিভেন্ট ছিল না। আজকে কিন্তু এই প্রশ্নটা রেলিভেন্ট, এবং সেই দিক থেকে বিচার করতে গেলে আমরা বলতে পারি যে এই ধরনের রিসার্চ গুলোকে আমরা বলবো যে সেটা হচ্ছে অ্যাপ্লাইড ফিলোসফি রিসার্চ, এবং তার মধ্যে বাস্তবতার বিষয়গুলো যুক্ত রয়েছে। একটা বিষয় যেটা এখানে বলার, যে রিসার্চের দুটো দিক, একটা কন্টেন্ট, একটা মেথোডোলজি। কন্টেন্ট বলতে আমরা কি বুঝবো? কন্টেন্ট বলতে আমরা বুঝছি যে যে অ্যাকচুয়াল ডেটা আমরা ব্যবহার করি, যেগুলো আমরা সরাসরি বলে থাকি, যেগুলো ছাড়া কোনো ধরনের থিসিস আলোচনা কোনো কিছু মিনিংফুল নয়, সেটাকে বলে অ্যাকচুয়াল ডেটা, আর্গুমেন্ট এবং অবজারভেশন। এই ধরনের বিষয়, এই ধরনের বিষয়গুলো কিন্তু অ্যাকচুয়ালি কি হয় যে সেগুলোই আসলে কনস্টিটিউট দ্য মেন পার্ট অফ এ থিসিস অর এ ডিসার্টেশন। কিন্তু এগুলো নির্দিষ্ট মেথোডোলজি যদি ফলো না করে তাহলে সেটা কিন্তু আমরা রিসার্চ বলে কাউন্ট করবো না, বা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে ডিগ্রি লাভের জন্য যে রিসার্চ করি সেইখানে আমরা কিন্তু সাবমিট করতে পারবো না। সেখানে নির্দিষ্ট ফরম্যাট আছে, নির্দিষ্ট প্রসিডিওর আছে, সেই প্রসিডিওর গুলো সব কিন্তু ফলো করতে হবে, তা না হলে কিন্তু এটা করা সম্ভব নয়। এখানে যে কথাগুলো বলার সেটা আমি পরে বলছি। We're in the same boat, brother. 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 If you keep one and you wanna lose the other, is the... হ্যাঁ, এসেছো? হ্যাঁ, হ্যালো। আমরা যেটা বলছিলাম যে এখানে যে কথাটা বলছিলাম যে কিভাবে আমরা বিষয়গুলোকে বিচার করব, এবং সেখানে যে বিষয়টা বলার কথা সেটা হচ্ছে হ্যাঁ, আমরা যে কথাটা বলবো সেটা হচ্ছে যে এটা কন্টেন্টের দিক, এটা মেথোডোলজির দিক। মেথোডোলজির দিক থেকে প্রসিডিওর স্ট্রাকচার, কিভাবে কাজটা হবে, কিভাবে প্রসিডিওর প্রসিড করবে, এটা কিন্তু খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয়। যেমন আমরা যদি কাউকে নিমন্ত্রণ করি খাওয়ানোর জন্য, সেখানে কিন্তু চাল, ডাল, আটা এগুলি খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, মিষ্টি, কিন্তু সেগুলোকে কিভাবে সাজিয়ে দেওয়াটা কিন্তু একসঙ্গে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। তা না হলে কিন্তু সেটা ঠিক মতো একটা মানুষকে নিমন্ত্রণ করে তাকে ঠিকভাবে সম্মান জানানো হবে না। অর্থাৎ এই যে মেথোডোলজি ব্যাপারটা সেই জন্য খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। হ্যাঁ, নিশ্চয়ই থালা বাসনগুলোকেও আমরা চিবিয়ে চিবিয়ে খাওয়া, কিন্তু তার একটা ইনস্ট্রুমেন্টাল ভ্যালু আছে। তবে the importance of methodology is instrumental is good to the extent that subserves the interest of the content is suitable and adequate for the proposed end. এবং আরেকটা উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে যে যদি আমি মেথোডোলজিটা বলে দিই যে কিভাবে বিষয়গুলো ঘটছে, তাহলে যেটা সুবিধা হবে সেটা হচ্ছে কি, যে আমরা যেটা সুবিধা হবে সেটা আমরা ঠিকমতো বিষয়গুলোকে আমরা বিচারের মধ্যে রাখতে পারবো। আমরা বিষয়গুলোকে ঠিকভাবে কাউন্ট করতে পারবো। এবং যারা পরবর্তীকালে সেটাকে জাজমেন্টে নিয়ে আসবেন, ইভালুয়েট করবেন, তারাও ঠিকভাবে ইভালুয়েট করতে পারবেন। তা না হলে কিন্তু এটা করা সম্ভব হবে না। আরেকটা জিনিস হবে যে অলরেডি আমি যদি বলে দিই আমি কিভাবে এগিয়েছি, তাহলে পরবর্তীকালে যারা রিসার্চ করবে তারা কিন্তু তার দ্বারা উপকৃত হবে। তাদের কিন্তু আননেসেসারি ট্রায়াল এন্ড এরার করার দরকার হবে না। আমি যে পর্যন্ত পৌঁছেছি সেখান থেকে শুরু করতে পারবে। সেজন্য এখানে কিন্তু মেথোডোলজি ব্যাপারটা খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আরেকটা কথা, এখানে মেথড আর মেথোডোলজি দুটো একই ধরনের কথা হলো, দুটো কিন্তু আলাদা। মেথড বলতে অ্যাকচুয়াল টেকনিক প্রসিডিওর যেটা আমরা ব্যবহার করি, সেই অ্যাকচুয়াল টেকনিক বা প্রসিডিওরটাকে বলছি আমরা মেথডস। যেমন ফিলোসফির ক্ষেত্রে অনেক মেথড আমরা ব্যবহার করতে পারি। যেমন এখানে বলছি কম্পারেটিভ মেথড, থট এক্সপেরিমেন্ট, ক্রিটিক্যাল মেথড, ডায়ালেকটিক্যাল মেথড, অ্যানালিটিক্যাল মেথড, ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল মেথড, হিস্টোরিক্যাল মেথড, কার্টেসিয়ান মেথড, ফেনোমেনোলজিক্যাল মেথড, হেটেরো ফেনোমেনোলজিক্যাল মেথড, হারমেনেটিক, বিভিন্ন মেথডের কথা আমরা বলি, ফেমিনিস্ট মেথড, এখন আবার এক্সপেরিমেন্টাল মেথডের কথা বলা হচ্ছে। তাহলে বিভিন্ন মেথড আমরা ফলো করি, এবং এই পথ শুধু ফিলোসফির লোকেরা না, অন্যান্য সাবজেক্টের লোকেরাও এই ধরনের পদ্ধতি প্রকরণ ব্যবহার করেন। দেখো প্রশ্ন যে আমি যে হাজার পদ্ধতি আছে তার থেকে একটা পদ্ধতি বাঁচলাম বা দুটো পদ্ধতিকে মিক্স করে ব্যবহার করছি, আমাকে প্রশ্ন করবে যে আপনি অন্য পদ্ধতিগুলো নিচ্ছেন না কেন? সেই জাস্টিফিকেশনটা দিতে হবে। যখন আমার পদ্ধতি নির্বাচনের সঙ্গে সঙ্গে এই জাস্টিফিকেশনটাও থাকবে, যেটাকে আমি বলি দ্য লজিক বিহাইন্ড দ্য মেথডস উই ইউজ ইন দ্য কনটেক্সট অফ আ রিসার্চ স্টাডি এন্ড এক্সপ্লেন হোয়াই we are using a particular method or technique and not using others, so that research results are capable of being evaluated either by the researcher or by the examiners. সেজন্য এটা খুবই ইম্পর্টেন্ট যে কিভাবে দেওয়া। একই সঙ্গে এখানে প্রশ্ন রয়েছে যে কোন একটা রিসার্চ করতে গেলে আপনি যেভাবে এগুচ্ছেন তার কোন কোন ক্রাইটেরিয়া স্যাটিসফাই করছে, কোনটা করছে না, এটা কোন থিওরির মতো লাগছে, এবং এর যে থিওরিটিক্যাল পার্সপেক্টিভ অন্য কোনো থিওরিটিক্যাল পার্সপেক্টিভের সঙ্গে তার যোগ আছে কিনা, এইসব প্রশ্নগুলো কিন্তু আপনাকে আগেই আলোচনা করে নিতে হবে। অ্যান্ড দিস ইজ কল্ড মেথোডোলজি। অ্যান্ড এবারে প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে কারা রিসার্চ করতে পারে, হু ক্যান ডু রিসার্চ ইন ফিলসফি। এখানে পরিষ্কার আমরা বুঝতে পারছি যারা এখানে আমরা ফিলসফি ছাত্র যারা অন্তত পক্ষে যে কাজগুলো করে, যেগুলো অন্তত পক্ষে যারা কোন একটা নির্দিষ্ট ফিল্ডে যেখানে সে রিসার্চ করবো ভাবছে, সেই ফিল্ডে যার একটা যথেষ্ট দক্ষতা আছে, বিষয়টা সে ভালোভাবে বোঝে সেই অংশটা, অর্থাৎ যে পার্টিকুলার ডোমেনটা সে চুজ করেছে তার উপরে তার একটা মাস্টারি থাকতে হবে। আরেকটা থাকতে হবে যে কিছু করার, কিছু আবিষ্কার করা, কিছু লেখা, কিছু নিজেকে প্রকাশ করার একটা তাগিদ থাকতে হবে। কিউরিওসিটি না থাকলে কিন্তু হয় না। আর ক্রিটিক্যাল রিফ্লেক্টিভ অ্যাবিলিটি, ক্রিটিক্যাল থিঙ্কিং করতে হবে। শুধুমাত্র ডগম্যাটিক ওয়েতে যা খুশি এক কথা বলে গেলাম এরকম কিন্তু চলবে না। আর একটা হাই ডিগ্রি অফ জেনারেলাইজ, যে আমরা তো কিছু তথ্য নিয়ে কথা বলবো, কিছু তথ্য নিয়ে একটা সামান্যীকরণের চেষ্টা করবো। সামান্যীকরণ কিভাবে করতে হয়, সামান্যীকরণে কি কি নিয়ম আছে, সেটা আমি করতে পারি কিনা, হ্যাঁ, এই যে প্রশ্নগুলো। আরেকটা প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, যে যেসব মেটেরিয়ালস আমার প্রয়োজন লাগবে রিসার্চের জন্য, সেই মেটেরিয়ালসটা কোন ভাষায় আছে, সেই ভাষাটা আমাকে জানতে হবে। আমি যদি বৌদ্ধ দর্শন নিয়ে কাজ করবো বলি, তাহলে কিন্তু আমার পালি প্রাকৃত এসব ভাষাগুলোর সঙ্গে যুক্ত থাকতে হবে। তা না হলে কিন্তু আমি এগুলো আমি প্রকৃত মূল তথ্যের কাছে পৌঁছাতে পারবো না। আরেকটা বিষয় আছে প্রেজেন্টেশন। ধরুন আপনি একটা পালি ভাষায় লিখলেন, শুধু বর্ধমান বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় গ্রহণ করবে না, তার একটা নির্দিষ্ট ভাষা আছে, ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ অফ প্রেজেন্টেশন, ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ অফ রিপোর্টিং, সেখানে কিন্তু ইংরেজি বা বাংলা ভাষায় লিখতে হবে। আরেকটা লাস্ট প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে এক ধরনের অরিজিনালিটি, নতুনত্ব আপনার ভাবনার মধ্যে থাকতে হবে, আপনার চিন্তা ভাবনার মধ্যে, তা নাহলে রিসার্চটা শেষ পর্যন্ত দাঁড়াবে না। রিসার্চ করার বিভিন্ন রকম টপিক হতে পারে। আমি থিঙ্কারকে ধরে করতে পারি, কান্ট, হিউম, উইটগেনস্টাইন, কাউকে ধরে একটা প্রবলেম সেট করতে পারেন, কোনো টেক্সটের উপর ভিত্তি করে করতে পারেন, কোনো কনসেপ্ট, কোনো থিওরির উপর ভিত্তি করে করতে পারেন। এলিনেশন, পার্সোনাল আইডেন্টিটি, এই কয়েকদিন আগে আরেকজন পার্সোনাল আইডেন্টিটি নিয়ে রিসার্চ করবে বলছিল। হ্যাঁ, জাস্টিস নিয়ে করতে পারেন। তবে কম্পারেটিভ টপিক হতে পারে, ইন্ডিয়ান ওয়েস্টার্ন কম্পারেটিভ করে আমরা অনেক কাজ করেছি, অনেক কাজ করা হয়। তেমনি ভারতীয় দর্শনের বিভিন্ন সিস্টেম গুলো নিয়ে কাজ করা হয়, তাহলে এগুলো কম্পারেটিভ টপিকস হতে পারে। মেটা ফিলসফিক্যাল, এটা ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট, যে যখন আমি ফিলসফি সম্পর্কে, ফিলসফি ফাংশন সম্পর্কে প্রশ্ন করছি, তখন সেই ধরনের বিষয়গুলো হবে মেটা ফিলসফিক্যাল টপিক। যেমন নেচার অফ ফিলসফি, ফিলসফি সায়েন্স, সায়েন্সের সঙ্গে ফিলসফি পার্থক্যটা কোথায়, অ্যাপ্লাইড ফিলোসফি আদৌ সম্ভব কিনা, অ্যানালিটিক কন্টিনেন্টাল ডিভাইড যে ফিলোসফির মধ্যে আছে এটা কি আদৌ বাস্তব, এটা কি হওয়া উচিত? তো দিস টাইপ অফ কোয়েশ্চেন মেটা ফিলোসফিক্যাল কোয়েশ্চেন। আর একটা ইন্টারডিসিপ্লিনারি, যেখানে আমার শুধু ফিলোসফি ডিসিপ্লিনারি থাকলে চলবে না, আমাকে অন্যান্য নেবারিং ডিসিপ্লিনে পৌঁছাতে হবে। যখন আমি এনভায়রনমেন্ট নিয়ে কাজ করছি তখন এনভায়রনমেন্টাল সায়েন্স, এনভায়রনমেন্টাল পলিটিক্স, এনভায়রনমেন্টাল সোসিওলজি, এনভায়রনমেন্টাল ইকোনমিক্স সবটাই আমাকে জানতে হবে। তো দিজ আর কল ইন্টারডিসিপ্লিনারি টপিকস। উইমেন স্টাডিজ বা যেটাকে আমরা বলি ফেমিনিস্ট স্টাডিজ, সেখানেও কিন্তু আমাকে বিভিন্ন ডিপার্টমেন্ট, লিগাল, ল থেকে শুরু করে অনেক কিছু ডিপার্টমেন্টে যেতে হবে। সেই ধরনের টপিকগুলোকে বলা হবে ইন্টারডিসিপ্লিনারি টপিক। কতগুলো রিসার্চ টপিক, যেমন পভার্টি অফ মোরাল ফিলোসফি, স্টাডি অফ এথিক্যাল ইস্যুজ ইন পভার্টি, এই ধরনের টপিক কেউ বাঁচতে পারে। অ্যান এক্সামিনেশন অফ ফিলোসফি অফ হিউম্যান রাইটস নিয়ে কেউ কথা বলতে পারে। হাইডেগারস নোশন অফ অথেন্টিসিটি অ্যান্ড নাৎসিবাদ, নাজিজমের সঙ্গে সম্পর্ক কি। তারপরে স্টাডি অন হিউম্যান অটোনমি ইন কন্টেম্পোরারি ডিজিটাল ওয়ার্ল্ড, এই ডিজিটাল ওয়ার্ল্ডে মানুষের অটোনমিটা কোন জায়গায় দাঁড়িয়ে গেছে। এখন আমরা যে ধরনের এপিস্টেমোলজি পড়ি, স্ট্যান্ডার্ড এপিস্টেমোলজি বলা হয়, জাস্টিফাইড ট্রু নলেজ, নলেজ নয় নয় এই সংক্রান্ত যে প্রশ্ন। এখন নন স্ট্যান্ডার্ড এপিস্টেমোলজি অনেক কিছু বেড়ে গেছে, স্ট্যান্ড পয়েন্ট এপিস্টেমোলজি, ফেমিনিস্ট এপিস্টেমোলজি, পোস্ট মডার্ন এপিস্টেমোলজি, যেগুলো বলে নন স্ট্যান্ডার্ড এপিস্টেমোলজি, সেগুলো নিয়ে রিসার্চ করা যেতে পারে। সাইবার এথিক্স নিয়ে রিসার্চ করা যেতে পারে। এই ধরনের হাজার রকমের বিষয় নিয়ে আমি কাজ করা যেতে পারে। এখন এই যে প্রশ্নগুলো রয়েছে, যেমন কেউ প্রশ্ন করতে পারে যে মেটা ফিলোসফিক্যাল কোশ্চেন, যে গুড ফিলোসফি আর ব্যাড ফিলোসফি বলে কোনো ব্যাপার আছে? তাহলে আমি এরকম একটা বিষয় চুজ করতে পারি। ইন সার্চ অফ এ গুড ফিলোসফি, ফিলোসফি ইজ ডিস্টর্টেড আইডিওলজি। তো এই ধরনের হাজার বিষয় নিয়ে প্রশ্ন হতে পারে। পসিবিলিটি এক্সপেরিমেন্টাল ফিলোসফি। সো দেয়ার আর সো মেনি টপিক, অ্যান্ড যেটা আপনার এরিয়ার মধ্যে হবে এবং আপনার যেখানে ইন্টারেস্ট আছে সেখানে। যেমন স্টাডি অফ দ্য ফিলোসফিক্যাল ইমপ্লিকেশন অফ পোস্ট ট্রুথ, আজকের দিনে যে পোস্ট ট্রুথের গল্প আমরা শুনছি, হ্যাঁ, ট্রুথের যেন রাজত্ব শেষ হয়ে গেল, এখন যা বানাবো, যা রচিব তাই সত্য, এই ভাবনাটাকে আপনি কিভাবে দেখেন। এবারে যেটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ জিনিস, প্রসিডিওর, স্টেজ, স্টেপ আছে কতগুলো। যেমন প্রথমে আমাকে কি করতে হবে, রিসার্চ প্রবলেমটাকে ক্লিয়ারলি স্টেট করতে হবে। কিন্তু রিসার্চ প্রবলেমটা আমি কোথায় পাবো? আমার একটা নির্দিষ্ট টপিক ঠিক, নির্দিষ্ট একটা এরিয়া আমি ঠিক করেছি, কিন্তু সেই এরিয়ার মধ্যে কোন জায়গাটা রিসার্চ করা হয়নি বা কোন জায়গাটা রিসার্চ করার সুযোগ আছে, যেটাকে আমরা রিসার্চ গ্যাপ কোথায় আছে, সেটা আমি কোথা থেকে খুঁজে পাবো? আমি তো রাস্তাঘাটে ঘুরে বেড়ালে বা লাইব্রেরিতে ঘুরে বেড়ালে পাবো না। আমাকে নির্দিষ্ট লিটারেচার, ওই সম্পর্কিত যাবতীয় লিটারেচার আমাকে দেখতে হবে, এবং সেখানে দেখতে হবে লিটারেচার গুলো দেখতে দেখতে আমাকে খেয়াল করতে হবে যে ঠিক কোন জায়গাটায় কাজ হয়েছে, কোন জায়গাটায় কাজ হয়নি। যে আমি দেখলাম সেখানের মধ্যে একটা ইস্যু আছে, এই ইস্যুটা কেউ বলেননি কিছু, বা সেটার কোনো সমাধান সূত্র আমি পাচ্ছি না, বা কোনো একটা বিষয়ের ভুল ব্যাখ্যা হয়েছে, আপনি ব্যাখ্যাটাকে you try to give some adequate interpretation. That may be one type of research. So এখানে কিন্তু ডিফাইনিং রিসার্চ প্রবলেম আর ফরম্যাটিং রিসার্চ প্রবলেম, একটা লিটারেচার সার্ভেটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট। তাহলে তিনটে অ্যাকচুয়ালি একসঙ্গেই ঘটছে, তোমরা একসঙ্গেই ঘটছে। লিটারেচার সার্ভে না করলে আপনি কোনো রিসার্চ গ্যাপ খুঁজে পাবেন না, এবং রিসার্চ গ্যাপ খুঁজে পাওয়ার পরে প্রবলেমটা স্টেট করতে হবে। তো দিজ আর রিলেটেড, এক দুই তিন কিন্তু একই সঙ্গে চলছে। তারপরে যখন আমি when you placed in some position, this is the research gap, on the basis on this gap I want to make some bridge, or some like to contribute something original, so that তখন you have to start with some working hypothesis. That is, if you have some questions about a particular domain of things, particular domain of knowledge, it is natural that you have some idea, সাম আনসার টু দ্যাট কোয়েশ্চেন। এইটাকে নিয়ে আপনাকে স্টার্ট করতে হবে, যে এটার উত্তর পাই। তারপরে স্টার্ট করে সেটাকে কনফার্ম করার চেষ্টা করার জন্য আপনাকে রিসার্চটা কিভাবে করবেন, সময় টময় রিসার্চ ডিজাইন বলা হয়, ডেটা কালেক্ট করবেন কিভাবে, তারপর ডেটাগুলো অ্যানালিসিস করবেন। আমাদের কাছে ডেটা কি, আমরা আলোচনায় আসছি ডেটা আমরা কোথা থেকে পাবো। এখানে আমরা সেকেন্ডারি ডেটাই তো ব্যবহার করি, বিজ্ঞান যে ডেটা দেয়, কমন সেন্স ডেটা পাই, হ্যাঁ, বিভিন্ন ভাষা থেকে, সেগুলোকে আমরা কালেক্ট করতে হবে। তারপর আছে অ্যানালিসিস অফ ডেটা, তার মধ্যে যেগুলো আমার পছন্দ হবে সেগুলো নেবো, যেগুলো পছন্দ হবে না সেগুলোকে বাদ দেবো, এই বিষয়গুলো কিন্তু থাকবে, তা না হলে কিন্তু হবে না। এই যে সব বিষয়গুলো না থাকলে কিন্তু আমার কিন্তু কাজ হবে না। সেজন্য সব এভরিথিং ইজ দেয়ার এখানে লাগবে। অর্থাৎ ডেভেলপমেন্ট অফ ওয়ার্কিং হাইপোথিসিসের পরে আপনাকে ডেটা কালেক্ট করতে হবে। ডেটা আমরা বিভিন্ন বুক, জার্নাল সেগুলো নেবো, এবং তার সঙ্গে একই সঙ্গে বিভিন্ন ধরনের যে বিষয়বস্তু আছে যেগুলো আমাদের রিলেভেন্ট হবে সেগুলোকে আমি, তারপরে এই ডেটাগুলো রিজেক্ট অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে আমার যে প্রায় প্রথম যে হাইপোথিসিসটা আমরা যে ওয়ার্কিং হাইপোথিসিস করেছি সেটাকে কনফার্ম করব। যদি সেটা কনফার্মড হয় তাহলে যেটাকে বলে হাইপোথিসিস টেস্টিং, তাহলে আমার এবারে এসে গেছে আমি জেনারেলাইজ করবো এবং ইন্টারপ্রিটেশন করবো এবং তার মধ্য দিয়ে আমি একটা থিসিস বা প্রজেক্ট রিপোর্ট বা ডিসার্টেশন লেখার চেষ্টা করবো। এই হচ্ছে মূল প্রসিডিওর। এটা কিন্তু সব সাবজেক্টে হুবহু একরকম নয়, কিন্তু সোশ্যাল সায়েন্সের ক্ষেত্রে মোটামুটি এরকম একটা বিষয় আমাদের মাথার মধ্যে রাখতে হবে। তার মধ্যে কোনোটা ক্ষেত্রে কোনো একটা সাবজেক্টের বেশি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, কোনো কম গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। হ্যাঁ, যেমন রিসার্চ ডিজাইনটা আমাদের ক্ষেত্রে ততটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ নয়, কিন্তু অন্য একটা সাবজেক্টে খুব বেশি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, এরকম হতে পারে। আর লিটারেচার সার্ভেটা কিভাবে করতে হবে? হুম, লিটারেচার সার্ভে দুটো একটা বই পড়লাম, দিয়ে বললাম না হয়ে গেছে এই বই এই বলেছে, তা নয়। সংশ্লিষ্ট বিষয়ে যা কিছু লেখা হয়েছে সবার সম্পর্কে সব বিষয়গুলো তো আপনাকে জানতে হবে। তার ভিত্তিতে আপনাকে একটা বলতে হবে যে আমি এই বিষয় দেখেছি, এই বিষয়ে এইসব বইগুলোর মধ্যে আছে, এই বইগুলোর মধ্যে এইসব দিকগুলো আলোচনা হয়েছে, বাট দিস পার্ট is not discussed, and this is the research gap which I want to fulfill, and this filling up the gap is the most important thing. এবং এইভাবে তোমাকে গ্যাপটাকে আইডেন্টিফাই করতে হবে এবং তোমাকে ফিল করতে হবে। এখানে সব থেকে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ যে জিনিসটা সেটা হচ্ছে যে রিসার্চ গ্যাপটা না দেখতে পেলে আমার কিন্তু ডুপ্লিকেশন অফ রিসার্চ হবে এবং রিডান্ডেন্ট পাবলিকেশন হবে, যেটা অলরেডি যে বিষয়টা রিসার্চ হয়ে গেছে সেই রিসার্চটাই লোকে করবে। হ্যাঁ, সেজন্য ভারতীয় দর্শন ক্ষেত্রে অনেক সময় এরকম হয় যে ডেটা ব্যাংকটা খুব ভালো নয়, ডেটা বেসটা আমরা ভালো পাই না বলে একই জিনিসের রিসার্চ এখানে একটা হচ্ছে ওখানে একটা ঘুরিয়ে হচ্ছে, সেই ডুপ্লিকেশন অফ রিসার্চ এটা কিন্তু হয় এবং রিডান্ডেন্ট পাবলিকেশন হয়, তার থেকে বেরিয়ে আসতে হবে। আর ডেটা কোথেকে পাবো? ডেটা ফ্রম আদার ডিসিপ্লিন বললাম, আমরা নিজেরা কালেক্ট করি না, উই ডু নট কালেক্ট, নিজেরা কিন্তু কালেক্ট করি না, এটা কিন্তু খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আমরা যে ডেটাগুলো পাই সেকেন্ড অর্ডার এক্সপ্লোরেশন তো আমাদের, যেটাগুলো আমরা অন্য জায়গা থেকে পাই, বুকস আছে, জার্নালস আছে, পার্সোনাল ইন্টারভিউ আছে, এনগেজিং এক্সপার্টস তার মধ্য দিয়ে পেতে পারি, এবং ফিলোসফির ক্ষেত্রে যেটা কমন সেন্স, সায়েন্স যে ডেটা আমাদের সরবরাহ করে সেটা, এবং থট এক্সপেরিমেন্ট, এই ধরনের বিভিন্ন জায়গা থেকে আমাদের কিন্তু ডেটাগুলো কালেক্ট করতে হবে এবং তার ভিত্তিতে আমাকে এই সিদ্ধান্তগুলো করতে হবে। আমাদের কিন্তু মূল জিনিস কিন্তু বুকস, জার্নাল আর নেট মেটেরিয়ালস এখন, আর তার সঙ্গে কমন সেন্স, সায়েন্স, থট এক্সপেরিমেন্ট এই বিষয়গুলো আছে। এগুলো দিয়ে আমাকে কিন্তু এই হাইপোথিসিস যেটা উত্তর ভেবেছিলাম তাকে কনফার্ম করতে হবে। ডেভেলপিং এ ওয়ার্কিং হাইপোথিসিস, এটা করতে গেলে কি করতে হয়? টিচারের সঙ্গে আলোচনা করতে হবে, কলিগদের সঙ্গে আলোচনা করতে, যারা এইসব বিষয় নিয়ে অলরেডি আলোচনা করেছে, তারা যারা ওই বিষয় সম্পর্কে কাছাকাছি বিষয় সম্পর্কে কাজ করছে তাদের সঙ্গে আলোচনা করতে হবে, তারা কিন্তু অনেক হেল্প করতে পারে। এবং এইভাবে একটা ওয়ার্কিং হাইপোথিসিস ডেভেলপ করতে হবে এবং সেটাকে কনফার্ম করার চেষ্টা করতে হবে ডেটার মাধ্যমে। এবারে রিসার্চ করে আমরা কি পাই? রিসার্চ করে অনেক সময় পেপার তৈরি করি, যাকে বলে স্কলারলি পেপার, যেটা জার্নালে প্রকাশিত হবে, একটা প্রফেশনাল জার্নালে। এই দুর্গাপুজোর সোভিনিয়ারে বের করলে কিন্তু হবে না। ইফ ইউ ওয়ান্ট টু মেক academic paper, so you have to choose a paper, dedicated paper on philosophy, and it may be GICPR or IPQ or some other paper. There are so many papers, national and international level. So and these are all called professional journals. সেই প্রফেশনাল জার্নালে আপনার কিছু প্রকাশ করতে হবে এবং তার নির্দিষ্ট প্রক্রিয়া আছে, সেই প্রক্রিয়ার মধ্যে বেরিয়ে এসে তবে আপনারটা প্রকাশিত হবে, তার একটা মূল্য আছে। অনেক সময় টার্ম পেপার লেখা, সেটাও এক ধরনের রিসার্চ হয়। ইউনিভার্সিটি পরীক্ষার জন্য মনোগ্রাফ, কেউ একটা সিঙ্গেল থিমের উপর অনেকটা লিখতে চায়, সেটাও হতে পারে। ডিসার্টেশন, যেটাকে এমফিল এর জন্য আমরা বেশিরভাগ ক্ষেত্রে বলি, তাও অথার্স ফাইন্ডিং, সেটা রিলেটিভলি লোয়ার দ্যান, যদি পিএইচডির তুলনায় একটু কম আমরা মনে করি গুণমানের দিক থেকে, কিন্তু এখানে খুব বিরাট ধরনের পার্থক্য কিন্তু নেই। এবং প্রজেক্ট পেলে সেই প্রজেক্ট রিপোর্ট পাঠাতে হয়, সেই সব বিষয়গুলো আছে। অনেক সময় এর থেকে বইও কেউ লিখতে পারেন, কিন্তু আমরা যে কারণে করি সেটা ডিগ্রি পাওয়ার জন্য, সেটা থিসিস, এ বাউন্ড ডকুমেন্ট ফর্মালি সাবমিটেড ইন সাপোর্ট অফ এ ক্যান্ডিডেচার অফ এ হায়ার ডিগ্রি অর প্রফেশনাল কোয়ালিফিকেশন লাইক পিএইচডি, ডিলিট, টিএসসি এটসেট্রা। এবং এখানে আমার নিজস্ব অথরের ওন রিসার্চ বা অরিজিনাল ফাইন্ডিংসটা এখানে বলা থাকে। রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল সিনপসিস যেটা লিখতে হবে আর কি, এটা আমি বলি যে এখানে রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল সিনপসিস অনেক পরবর্তীকালে একাধিক লাগতে পারে, কিন্তু আমরা যেটা বলতে চাই যে প্রথমেই যখন রিসার্চের জন্য কোথাও যাচ্ছেন তখনকার যে প্রথম রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল, সেটা সম্পর্কে আমরা কথা বলবো, এটাকেই আমরা রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল বলে মানছি। প্রথম যে জিনিসটা ভাবতে হবে সেটা হচ্ছে যে আপনি যে বিষয়টা ঠিক করেছেন কাজ করবেন তার একটা উপযুক্ত টাইটেল, বিষয়ের একটা অ্যাপ টাইটেল, খুব একটা টাইটেলটা এমন হবে যে অ্যাট্রাক্ট করবে, যে হ্যাঁ সুন্দর তো টাইটেলটা, দারুণ, এবং সেটা ইন্ডিকেটিং দ্য এরিয়া অ্যান্ড দ্য রিসার্চ গ্যাপ, তার মধ্যে কোন এরিয়াতে কাজ এবং গ্যাপটা কি সেটা কিন্তু তার মধ্য দিয়ে ফুটে উঠবে, আলাদা করে বলার দরকার হবে না। ঠিক করাটা কিন্তু ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট হিয়ার। এবং এই টাইটেল ঠিক করাটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। এটা নিয়ে আপনাকে অনেক দিন ধরে চলতে হবে এবং একটা রিসার্চ কমপ্লিট হলে সেটাও কিন্তু সারা জীবন সেই রিসার্চের বিষয়টা আপনার কেরিয়ারের সঙ্গে যুক্ত থাকবে। এটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আর রিসার্চ ইস্যুটাকে, প্রবলেমটাকে খুব সংক্ষেপে বলতে হবে এবং সেটা বলতে গেলে লিটারেচার সার্ভে এসব ব্যাপারগুলো থাকছে, এগুলো করতে আপডেটেড নলেজ আপনাকে বর্তমানের সঙ্গে যুক্ত করতে হবে। আজ থেকে 50 বছর আগে কে কি বলেছিল, দ্যাট ইজ নট ইম্পর্টেন্ট। দ্যাট মে বি ইম্পর্টেন্ট হিস্টোরিক্যালি, বাট ইউ হ্যাভ টু রিলেটেড টু দ্য প্রেজেন্ট সিচুয়েশন, আপডেটেড নলেজ। আর এখানে আপনার নিজস্বতা করা, তোমার বা আপনার কোন জায়গাটা নতুনত্ব, সেই জায়গাটা উল্লেখ করতে হবে। আর তারপরে মূল যুক্তি কাঠামোটাকে সংক্ষেপে করে তোমাকে বলতে হবে যে এই হচ্ছে আমার মূল কন্টেন্টস, সেটা বলতে হবে। আর চ্যাপ্টারাইজেশন খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। অনেক সময় আপনি হয়তো বলতে পারলেন না ঠিক মতো, কিন্তু চ্যাপ্টারাইজেশন বুঝিয়ে দিল যে পুরো ব্যাপারটা। আরেকটা কি মেন সোর্স, এ পর্যন্ত যে সোর্সটা আমি ইনফরমেশন হিসেবে পেয়েছেন ওই লিটারেচার সার্ভে করতে গিয়ে, সেটা নিয়ে একটা ওয়ার্কিং বিবলিওগ্রাফি তৈরি করতে হবে। এই বিবলিওগ্রাফি তৈরি করাটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ এবং এটা ফরম্যাটে করতে হবে। আপনাকে এপিএ বা এমএলএ যে কোনো একটা ফরম্যাটে করতে হবে, তা না হলে কিন্তু হবে যেমন ধরনের করে কয়েকটা, এরকম কিন্তু হবে না। ওই কয়েকটা বাজারে বই নাম লিখলাম, পাস কোর্সে পড়ানো হয়, এগুলো কিন্তু কোনো বিবলিওগ্রাফি নয়। বিবলিওগ্রাফি নির্দিষ্ট ফরম্যাট আছে, সেই ফরম্যাট এবং কি টার্মস আপনি যে শব্দগুলো ব্যবহার করবেন। ফিলোসফিতে অনেক সময় একই শব্দ অনেক নির্দিষ্ট একটা আলাদা আলাদা অর্থে ব্যবহৃত হয়। আপনি যে শব্দগুলো ব্যবহার করবেন সেগুলো সম্বন্ধে বলে দেবেন। আর রিসার্চের আপনি ঠিক কতটা কাজ করবেন, কতটা কাজ করা হবে না, সেটাও ঠিক করে দিতে হবে, লিমিট করে দিতে হবে। টেন্টেটিভ চ্যাপ্টারের কথা বললাম, বিবলিওগ্রাফি খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। এখানে কেউ কেউ বলছেন এপিএফ ফরম্যাটে ইনটেক্সট সাইটেশন এখানে বেশি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, কেউ কেউ বলছেন। আর গুড পরিষ্কার করে কিন্তু বলতে হবে। কথা বলতে পারছেন না, আপনি যেটা ভেবেছেন বলতে পারছেন না, এটা কিন্তু খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আর আনডিউ এক্সপেকটেশন থাকবে না, মানে হচ্ছে যে আমি বিরাট কিছু করছি, এরকম কেউ কিছু করেনি, এই ভাবটা কিন্তু কখনোই থাকবে না। আপনি ভাবতেন যে এই বিষয়ে কাজ হয়তো অন্যরা করেছে, অন্য দিকটা নিয়ে করেছে, আপনি অন্য একটা দিক নিয়ে করেছেন, আপনি বিরাট কিছু করছেন না, এই বিষয়গুলো আপনাকে থাকতে হবে। আর একটা কথা বলি যে গুড রিসার্চের কতগুলো ক্রাইটেরিয়া, উই ক্যান স্পিক অফ সাম ক্রাইটেরিয়া অফ গুড রিসার্চ। এবং এটা অলসো রিলেটেড টু ইউর রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল। পারপাস, রিসার্চ প্রসিডিউর এন্ড মেথোডোলজি শুড বি ডিটেইলড, পরিষ্কার করে বলতে হবে। ডিজাইন ইলাবোরেটেড, অ্যানালিসিস অফ ডেটা বি অ্যাডিকুয়েট, কনক্লুশন শুড বি কনফাইন্ড টু দোজ জাস্টিফাইড অর কনফার্ম বাই ডেটা অনলি। আমরা চ্যাপ্টারে যেগুলো বলেছি তার থেকে যেটা ফলো করে সেটাই হচ্ছে কনক্লুশন। তার বাইরে গিয়ে অন্য গল্প কিন্তু করা চলবে না, যে আমরা যা বললাম চ্যাপ্টারে সেটা গিয়ে আবার অন্য গল্প শুরু করলাম, কনক্লুশন তা কিন্তু নয়। সেই জন্য অনেক সময় বলা হয় ইন্ট্রোডাকশন, কনক্লুশনটা কোনো চ্যাপ্টার নয়। চ্যাপ্টার হচ্ছে যেগুলো নতুন তর্ক করবেন সেগুলো চ্যাপ্টার, সেটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। ইফ রিসার্চার ইজ ওয়েল এক্সপিরিয়েন্স, হ্যাজ এ গুড রেপুটেশন ইন ফিল্ড রিসার্চ অ্যাক্টিভিটি, পার্সন অফ ইন্টিগ্রিটি। এবারে কারোর কাছে কে কার কাছে রিসার্চ করছে, রিসার্চ গাইডেন্সটা এখানে খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। এইসব বিষয়গুলো মাথায় গেলে একটা গুড রিসার্চ ব্যাপারটা হবে। স্টাইল ফলো করতে হবে, কোন স্টাইলে লিখবেন, আপনাকে 12 ফন্টে লিখতে হবে, হ্যাঁ কিভাবে কি করবেন, এন্ড নোট, ফুড নোট, প্যারেনথেটিক্যাল নোট কিভাবে দেবেন, এগুলো ঠিক করতে হবে। 2,500 ওয়ার্ড, হ্যাঁ 2,500 থেকে 3,000 ওয়ার্ডের বেশি লিখতে বলে না। এটা আমার সাধারণ কথা, কিন্তু কোন একটা ইউনিভার্সিটি তারা কিন্তু নির্দিষ্ট করে বলে দিতে পারে যে আমাদের 1000-এর মধ্যে চাই বা আমাদের 1,500-এর মধ্যে চাই। তারা যেমনটি বলবে সেই রকম করে আপনাকে কিন্তু সুন্দরভাবে লিখতে হবে। আমাদের হাতে থাকছে না, যদি কিছু বলা না থাকে 2,500 ওয়ার্ডের মধ্যে লেখার চেষ্টা করুন। সেই কথাগুলো কিন্তু আপনাকে বলে দিতে হবে। আর ফুড নোটের ক্ষেত্রে বলি, ফুড নোট হচ্ছে কোনো পাতার শেষে যেটা কমপ্লিট হওয়ার পরে দেওয়া হয়। আর প্যারেনথেটিক্যাল নোট হচ্ছে কি চলতে চলতে বডির মধ্যে দিয়ে দেওয়া হচ্ছে। এরকম বিভিন্ন রকমের আছে, এমএলএ ফরম্যাট, এপিএ ফরম্যাট, এগুলো আমার পরবর্তীকালে যারা বলবেন তারা অনেকে বলবেন, সেই নিয়ে এগুলো নিয়ে আমি আর বেশি কিছু বলছি না। আরো আমাদের দুজন বক্তা আছেন, আমার বলার ঠিক পরই এবার বলবেন ডক্টর সঞ্জয় কুমার from Kolhan University, and he will take on these issues which I leave. Thank you very much for a patient hearing. Now we are waiting for Dr. Sanjay Kumar from Kolhan University. Thank you very much.
How do you think that we are the most important species in this universe, in spite of the fact that there are 70 lakh animals and there are 4 lakh plants, but we claim we are very unique, we are the most important, we are the dominant species? What makes us so? Is there anybody who would like to respond? What makes us very special in this
Sir,
scheme?
it's because we are able to speak, we
We
are
are able
able to
to,
convey our message.
okay, we are able to convey that. So even there are some animals who can decode it to be talking. They transmit some messages. Birds talk. Even some researchers are saying that even plants communicate with each other.
Maybe it is because of our rational faculty.
think.
Sir, it is intelligence.
It is the intelligence. Okay. So do you think that we are the only species having intelligence? Even dolphins have intelligence. Monkeys have
We can
intelligence.
think
Orang,
critically.
yeah. Pardon.
We can think critically.
Yeah, we can think critically is a very close answer. But the purpose of the thinking is what? This journey of philosophy, around 4,000 old journey of philosophy, is just, I will try to answer. This is the power we have. We have the power of consciousness to understand the entire universe. And this makes us very special. And we are very special species, and particularly we are very special professionals because we are associated with philosophy. Because this journey of philosophy is the journey of understanding the universe. 4,000, maybe 6,000 years back, particularly in India, a bit older one, we started this journey to understand the entire universe. And when I say universe, it is out and within. There is a universe within you, there is a universe outside of you. Okay, so this is the particular thing, particular event that makes us special. Okay, so this makes your life bigger, better, and holier than anything in the universe, because we have the power to understand the universe. Okay, now how this journey actually started? What happens, particularly to Santosh sir and Prashant sir, I have seen my students saying that whenever they are asked by their fellow mates or their friends from other disciplines, they generally feel awkward in answering what do we actually do in philosophy. So they are sometimes bullied, or sometimes they are made fun of, that what we are doing in philosophy. Okay, so this has been a very simple answer, that the journey of philosophy is the journey of understanding the entire universe. Okay, and there is one more allegation. When we say philosophy, we generally think that philosophy is something, it is saintly syllabus, it is saintly discipline. Our syllabus has nothing to do with this universe. Our syllabus has something to do with the virtual world, or the world of ideas, as Plato said. But to the contrast, just I want to say that philosophy began with one simple question, and I think everybody should agree. And the question is how to live our life. So this was the fundamental question, how to live our life, and the responses to this question generated to answer the same question. So when we are answering this question that how to live your life, this is not abstract question, this is not esoteric, this is not so specialized question. This question is for everybody, and that can be answered by everybody, or at least everybody should connect it with this question. Okay, so it is a critical study of problems concerning existence, knowledge, truth, beauty, justice, validity, mind, and language. In fact, the very way in which we think is partly the result of ideas which philosophers have produced over the ages and in all cultures. Now, this is the significance of philosophy. So when we are trying to do the research, even in today's world, even in 21st century's India, we must be indebted to the philosophers who have been trying to produce some ideas or conception, or who have been trying to clarify some ideas or conception. There are times when most basic questions and problems faced by human beings need analysis, understanding, and answer. So when doing in philosophy, do keep in mind our 4,000 years long proud journey. Okay, so philosophy is more worried about what is going on around us. Okay, and just to simplify this so that we could understand how research methodology is associated with philosophy. So in philosophy, we have been trying in India or in Western countries to answer three basic themes. And the three basic themes are metaphysics. We have been trying to answer some questions about existence and its nature. We have been trying to answer about knowledge and its methodology. And also the third one, axiology. Particularly in university, we don't have aesthetics as papers, either in UG or PG in most of the universities. But in axiological study, we study ethics, and ethics is there in every universities. Now, if you could trace the journey of philosophy, most of the ancient philosophers were sometime focused on metaphysics, or you can say that obsessed with metaphysics. And in this sense, Aristotle called metaphysics the first philosophy. He said that metaphysics is the first philosophy. Means it is the first task, it is the primary task of philosophers to talk about metaphysics, to explain the things around us or to explain the existence around us. But right from medieval philosophy, right from Bacon, Descartes, and particularly to Kant, this assumption changes, and Kant says that epistemology is the first philosophy. Because when we focused on metaphysics, there were a lot of confusions in philosophy, and that was also emitting or that confusion was also radiating into other disciplines. So Kant said that epistemology should be respected as first philosophy, and it is the task of epistemology to talk about the sources of knowledge, to talk about the justification of knowledge, to talk about the validity of knowledge, and how this validity or sources or knowledge in itself can be acquired. What are the methods of acquiring knowledge? So when we say epistemology and its methodology, we are not talking about specifically about philosophy. This epistemological inquiry into methodology applies to every disciplines, whether you are working in commerce, whether we are working in sciences, whether we are working in social sciences or in humanities. So I think epistemology should be understood or should be taken care of by every researcher across all disciplines. And we are very lucky, we are very fortunate that this epistemology is the part and parcel of our life. So we can easily understand knowledge, its limitation, and its methodology. Because once we go into methodology, we come to a very basic question that the knowledge we are claiming, does it qualify our verifiability condition, or it fails that? Okay, so let's come to our actual theme of this lecture. When coming to the, but I'll be basically focusing on critical thinking, that how critical thinking is the precondition for everyone trying to do some sort of research. Okay, this slide I think it has been already elaborated by Santosh sir, but just a recap, that research proposal must contain a state of the art. When I say state of the art, means it should not be outdated. It should not be an ancient kind of thing or prosaic kind of thing. It should be very updated, very advanced, and very cutting edge understanding. Okay, so your as Santosh sir has said, your title should be very attractive and very appealing. Okay, and then your research proposal should have introduction, what you are actually going to do, and a research review is very important, because when you do the research review, you understand that there is a problem or there is a gap in the existence of the knowledge in that domain. So there is a problem or there is a gap, and by doing this research, you're going to fix that problem. Okay, you are going to correct that problem, or you are going to heal that problem. So for that, literature review is very important, because from there you will get your actual mission, your actual goal, that what you are going to do or what you are supposed to do. Okay, so in the research proposal, there should be a next one, problem to be investigated, and this problem you will get while doing your research, doing your literature review. Okay, so this, without any problem, without any gap, you cannot do any research work. Okay, and if you are doing, it will be simply an essay kind of thing. Okay, so research is not an essay, it's a new drop of addition of knowledge, it's a new knowledge, and for that you must understand the problem to be investigated, and then objective of the investigation, and motivation, what motivates you, and then you can have hypothesis 1 2 3, whatever you want, and then you should have research design and methodologies. And in philosophy particularly, whenever I ask the students doing their masters or pursuing their research work, or even PDF, or even postdoc, they are very confused, or very down in terms of methodology. They think that we have hardly any methodology. They think that philosophy is lacking the methodologies for research work. But in reality, actually, philosophy is the mother of all the methodologies used by other disciplines, including sciences. So there is no scarcity of methodology in philosophy. And then you can have tools to be used in collection of data. Although philosophy is primarily theoretical, primarily introspective discipline, but there are cases where data can be used to establish the theory or your perception. Okay, so in philosophy, you can theorize something by collecting or using data. And one fine example could be what you are doing in applied ethics, biomedical ethics, and one very famous thing that I always love to quote, the research work of Carol Gilligan. When Carol Gilligan refuted psychologists, when psychologists believe that women are not that matured or that perfect as men in terms of moral maturity. So there was a belief that women cannot be moral agents, because moral maturity of women is inferior to that of men. Okay, so to refute this perception, to refute this hypothesis, Carol Gilligan collected some empirical data. And on the basis of data, she argued and she refuted that old theory and argued that no, women are equally matured in terms of morality, but their approach is very different. Their approach is not justice oriented, rather women's morality approach is care oriented. And with this empirical research, we had a very different ethics kind of thing called ethics of care or feminist ethics. Okay, so nowadays in philosophy, we can have empirical data and do research. Okay, then in the research proposal, you must cite, you must mention the significance of the study, in what manner your study or your research is significant, and then relevance to the present day problem and need of society. And particularly in India, when you are trying to do everything for the sake of Indian society, everything for the sake of society, you must explain in your research work that how your research work is going to solve a societal problem. Means the problem that you are locating in the society, you must try to mention its relevance, that our research work is not outdated, our research work is actually useful for the society, and that society of the today's society. Okay, and also contribution to the existing knowledge. When you are doing any research, say on ethics, or say on epistemology, or say on Indian logic, then you have to clearly mention in your research proposal that how this research work is going to enrich the Indian logic traditions, how this research is going to contribute to the understanding of the Indian logic. either in inductive way or deductive way. Okay, and also how this research work will radiate into, or it will shape into future work. Means if we are doing a work for say for 2 years or 3 years, so in the process, how do you think that this field of research work is going to take a particular shape in the future? Okay, so this would be there. And now just Santosh sir has already clarified everything. Just for you to be confident that we have hundreds of research methodology in philosophy. So do not feel down. Philosophy has a lot of methods, and in fact, philosophy is the mother of methodologies used by the other disciplines. Okay, so it could be introspective, synthetic method. You could be analytic, hermeneutical method, particularly when you are doing any research work on Indian ancient text. That hermeneutical method will be very useful. We have historical method, comparative method, empirical, critical, phenomenological. Interdisciplinary is very rightly observed as an important research methodology. And just to come to my focus, that why critical thinking is important. Now, if we look into the history, then philosophers for centuries or for millennia have used introspective method. Means it was like armchair philosophy. Okay, sitting in the chair and just speculating or thinking about the problem and its solutions. And in this way, philosophers from Aristotle onwards had proposed that thinking consists of an association of ideas that occur in sequence in our mind. Okay, so what was thinking? Thinking is a kind of association of ideas. And thinking refers to the content of our conscious mind. Now, you must understand our conscious mind, because until the psychologist Sigmund Freud indicated something else, we all believed that content of our conscious mind is something that can be called thinking. When asked what is thinking, we can report on our conscious thoughts. Say, for example, you are in a group of 10 friends, and suddenly you stop talking and they just start staring at the roof, and someone says, what are you thinking? So usually, if it is something that you want to tell, then you could report what is going on in your conscious thought. Okay, so philosophers have been since Aristotle using introspective method to study thinking. They studied the only mind to which they had direct access, their own. But there was a big problem. This obsession with conscious mind or consciousness was somewhere deconstructed, or it was refuted. How? Let's see. But the thoughts of which we are conscious represents only little of the brain's work. Now, brain is doing a lot of work. Brain is carrying out a lot of work. Out of this lot of works, consciousness is the one work. Means that brain is working also subconsciously or unconsciously. This limits introspective method. We do not have access to our mind's works simply by studying our own consciousness. Means by understanding our consciousness, we can not understand the works of mind in totality. Okay, and this encourages Sigmund Freud. Okay, and by the same time, philosophy was somewhere pushing psychology out of philosophy, because we thought that psychologism is not the part of philosophy. Okay, so this was going almost simultaneously. Okay, so philosophy was pushing psychology out, and psychology and plus philosophers were trying to understand thinking in a very different way. Okay, and Sigmund Freud used introspective method to establish his theory of psychoanalysis. Okay, although this theory is introspective, but in that introspection, Sigmund Freud claimed that consciousness is just one part of our thinking. one part of our conscious content, one part of our brain. There are other parts called subconscious or unconscious, and subconscious and unconscious also affect us, also affect our mental states. Okay, and when this was going on, this was refuted by, because see, just students, you must think that you must try to think that after Kant, philosophy was never the same, and after Kant, many scientists intruded the domain of philosophy. Means many scientists came into philosophy. So in 19th century and 20th century, we were trying to do philosophy as we do sciences, as we do biology, as we do physics, as we do psychology. So this method of science was affecting psychology. This method of science was also affecting philosophy. Okay, and in reaction to this psychologism, and in reaction to this psychoanalysis that studies mental states, there emerged a new theory called behaviorism, and this focused on behaviors and not on mental states. And this way it ousted mind from psychology. And psychology or philosophy is a science as such must rely on objective observations that can be repeated by other observers. So they thought that what Sigmund Freud is telling and what Sigmund Freud is trying to preach us, that cannot be repeated by other observers. So philosophers or psychologists who were working on thinking, they were trying to do philosophy or psychology in a manner science is done. They were trying to make it objective observations, that philosophy or science must be based on objective observations. But later on, in the second half of the 20th century, this behaviorism was also refuted, and there was a birth of, or there was an incarnation of cognitive psychology. Okay, and we can say, and we easily see, you can just see my last point, that philosophy was also affected by sciences and witnessing a fierce debate of cognitivism and non-cognitivism. So this was the same period in 20th century that psychology was also being affected by sciences and philosophy was also affected by sciences. And in this region, particularly in ethics, we see theories like cognitivism and non-cognitivism. Okay, so cognitive psychology emerged in second half of the 20th century, and it was like doing neuroscience. And it said that brain processes can be tracked while doing cognitive tasks. Means with the help of neuroscience devices, we can actually understand how brain is taking inputs and how brain is processing it and how brain is showing us outputs. Means how brain is actually doing critical thinking, or how computer is doing some sort of inferences or anumana. Okay, so human brain is a computer and our task is to discover its program. So this is very important in terms of thinking. This was a paradigm shift from what we had been doing and what we are actually trying to do nowadays with the help of psychology and biology and neurosciences. So this concept of thinking has totally changed. This way, human mind has re-entered psychology in a different way or in different form than that which preceded behaviorism. With this development, thinking is no longer seen as a flow of consciousness. Now try to understand. Thinking is not seen as a flow of consciousness, rather a high-level form of information processing in the brain. Psychology then is perfectly scientific, like physics. Observe the observable and theorize about the unobservable responsible. Okay, and this was simultaneously going on in philosophy as well. Because this way, consciousness is not viewed as an essential stuff of the mind, and introspection is not considered the best methodology in cognitive sciences. Okay, so this way, what you are trying to do, we were trying to equate our mind with computer. And this is the latest understanding. And on this understanding, even we are developing artificial intelligence, general intelligence, robots, and other things. We are just thinking that our brain, or even we are thinking of extension of our consciousness, that we can implant a chip into our brain and we can think better. And this is all possible with the fundamental understanding that our brain works like a computer. It takes problem or a stimulus as an input and processes a huge volume of data as a processor and gives a result as an output. But a correct result requires critical thinking. And this is where philosophy enters into psychology. Okay, we can believe that, okay, our brain is like computer. But even then, if you want to think correctly, if you want that its inferences must be error free or must not be fallacious, then critical thinking is very important in the process of thinking. And these inferences can be deductive, inductive, and abductive. You must have studied deductive and inductive methods. Abductive is like inferencing something with the help of explanation to the means argument to the best basis of explanation to the best possible explanation of any event. Okay, so who could be a critical thinker? See, if you are going to prepare a research proposal or you are going to do research work, you must be a critical thinker. Okay, and critical thinker is one who asks for justification, reason, or evidence. Whatever you are concluding, whether you are trying to establish a theory or you are trying to refute it. For example, when Ramanujacharya did this Khandan of Mayavad, okay, then even you are trying to refute something, you must ask for justification in your research work. Okay, and when you will do that, this will immediately invite debates about internalism and externalism, as we do in Indian philosophy, Swata Pramanavad and Parta Pramanavad. And theories like foundationalism and coherentism will come to rescue you. Okay, so a critical thinker who is doing a research work must ask for justification. Okay, second one, a critical thinker must be a skeptic. Okay, and this skepticism may not be strictly in terms of Descartesian skepticism, but a critical thinker must be skeptical about his or her findings. Means you must not be overconfident, you must not be sure, and you should not terminate inquiry. Means you must doubt yourself. Okay, so a skeptical method is very important in philosophy and in sciences. Okay, and a critical thinker also must be free from cognitive biases. Cognitive biases means whatever habits or whatever thinking you have been conditioned to, okay, those thinking or those habits can blind your observation. Okay, so when you are doing research work, you should be free from cognitive biases. I have just given two examples. One is confirmation bias and one is in-group bias. For example, confirmation bias, we can have example in medical sciences. For example, if you go to a doctor and doctor has this diagnosis, she has this diagnosis that you have this disease called X. Okay, so once he says that the patient has the disease called X, then what she will do? She will continue to gather evidences in support of her conclusion, in support of her diagnosis, and she will continuously ignore or continuously she would not notice the other evidences that refute her diagnosis. Okay, so this confirmation diagnosis is one example of bias. in group bias. For example, when you say that some philosopher is a X kind of philosopher, if you believe that, then you might not be noticing something which goes against your argument. So you must be open-minded, and you must not carry any cognitive bias when you are doing research work. Okay, and as I said, you must be always skeptical. Okay, and this skepticism can radiate into metaphysics, it can radiate into epistemology, and it can radiate into hermeneutics or everything you do. Okay, and with this, there is a very recent debate in epistemology about knowledge. Okay, this fallibilism and infallibilism. Whatever knowledge or whatever finding or whatever claim you are trying to put forward in your research work, do you agree that it is fallible? Means, do you agree that it can be wrong? Or you believe that no, I can never be wrong? Means you are supporting infallibilism with regard to that knowledge. Okay, and infallibilism cannot be defended in philosophy and sciences. Infallibilism says that knowledge can never fall, means knowledge can never be incorrect, and this is basically somewhere find support in religious knowledges and not in philosophy and sciences. In philosophy and sciences, we must be open to fallibilism, though fallibilism can be objective in its nature. Okay, fallibilism never says that we can never be correct. Fallibilism says that we can be objectively correct, but we can be wrong. For example, when white race people from Europe and America, they mistreated African people on the basis of color. Okay, they believed that knowledge was infallible, but no, that was not actually infallible. In the process of history, we came to know that people of color from Africa are like us, and they are equally talented, equally intelligent, and equally moral. Okay, so fallibilism says that anything can be correct and can be objectively correct, but in course of time it can be incorrect if we face some countering arguments. Okay, so this way just I try to lay out some importance of critical thinking, and just a bit more about citation in research work. When you are, because in this way, particularly we Indians are very poor in citing books. Okay, so for students it should be very important that in research, citations are references to information used and are an important part of academic integrity. Okay, so whatever you are doing, you must accept the date. You means you must be obliged. You must express your thankfulness to your previous thinkers or previous authors, or your previous philosophers, thinkers, authors, whatever. Okay, so citing means that you are very liberal, you are very generous, and you are accepting that this all work is not entirely novel, not entirely new, but I have been inspired by some previous authors. I have been motivated by some previous works. And when you are that generous, you must accept the date, or that you must be obliged to previous philosophers or thinkers. Okay, they acknowledge where ideas come from and help others build on the work. Proper citation also ensures that credit is given where it is due, and that readers can trace the sources of information. Okay, so as Santosh has said, that there could be many citation styles, but what we actually do, that whenever you get a book or a journal, you see that generally there are 6-7 information that you have to arrange. For example, name of the author, editor, or contributor, title of book or journal, version number if there is any, publisher, who is the publisher of the book, publication year, and what is the location of the publisher, whether it is Kolkata, Newark, Delhi, and page number. Okay, and this 7 information had to be arranged in a very different styles. And on the basis of that arrangement, we have many citation styles, as sir has mentioned. APA style, okay, it is designed by American Psychological Association, and now it is running into its latest 7th edition. Okay, and I have not given examples because this is already on the internet. Just go and cite, and if you require, I can share the link. Okay, and then Chicago Therapian style. This second one is basically followed in sciences. Okay, and then we have MLA style, Modern Language Association, prepared by, and then we have MHRA style, Modern Humanities Research Association. So basically in philosophy, we try to follow either APA, MLA, or to some extent MHRA. Okay, and these styles are nothing but the arrangements of these 7 information about book. Okay, just for your ready reference, references also known as citations, cited as in text. If you are using in-text citation, the details are available online. Footnotes, when you are citing it on the same page at the bottom, then these footnotes. And when you are citing at the end of your chapter or at the end of your paper, then this is called endnotes. Okay, are specific points within the text where the writer acknowledges the sources of information, ideas, or quotations used in their work. References serve us with attribution, means you are trying to attribute this his work to the original author. You are just trying to acknowledge that, recognize that. Okay, this is also done for verification, that the person who is reading your article or the person who is reading your research work can verify that. Verify that means that person can go to the original source. For example, when you are saying something about Hume, David Hume, and if you have cited David Hume, then the person who is reading your research proposal can verify this information by just tracking your references. Okay, and it also supports your argument. For example, as a new researcher, you may not have that authenticity in the philosophical domain, means people may not recognize you. Okay, so when you cite someone, when you cite an author or philosopher, what you are doing, you are trying to take support from that. Means those ideas, for example, people like Mahatma Gandhi, if you are citing him, then his ideas can in some way support your ideas. Okay, and your work could be more authentic. And the last one is to avoidance of plagiarism. Okay, means you are saying that this is not something that you have stolen from some work. Means you are not stealing it. You are not a thief. Okay, you are saying that I am an authentic researcher. Okay, I am not a thief. Okay, so by citing, you avoid plagiarism. And in plagiarism, we have very poor record in India. Okay, most of the works are not cited. So be very careful in terms of references. Okay, that does the work of attribution, verification, support, and avoidance of plagiarism. Okay, and then we have bibliographies, and there is a slight difference. Just I have written for you. Bibliographies, on the other hand, are comprehensive list of all the sources consulted, referred, or cited by the author in the work. And plus, remember, your bibliography also includes some other works that had not been cited. Okay, unlike references which appear within the text, bibliographies are typically located at the end of a document or paper. The primary function of bibliographies include documentation, for further reading, for acknowledgement, and for scholarly convention. Okay, so in references, you should cite something that you are trying to quote it, that you are trying to cite it. Okay, but in bibliography, you can also include some books, some journals that you have not directly cited in your research work. Means bibliographies are generally bigger than, means bibliography include everything reference has, and plus bibliographies can include something that reference does not have. Means bibliographies are generally bigger than references. Okay, and I do understand from practical point of view that even after these three lectures, you might have some problem. So I invite everyone who is trying to prepare research work to write the research work, okay, and get it shown to either Prashant sir, Santosh sir, or to me. Okay, and the process of that you will actually learn, because 1-2 lectures will not make you a good researcher. Okay, but at least with the help of Santosh sir, we have just built the cat. We have started this mission, and in the process, just to conclude, and just not to this is not actually the conclusion. Just I wanted to say that research methodology is a progressive event. Means we cannot be stuck at one research methodology. Progress in philosophical theories makes for progress in methodological philosophical methods, and vice versa. Okay, philosophy, like all sciences, it starts with ways of knowing and thinking all humans have, and applies them a bit more carefully, a bit more systematically, a bit more critically. Okay, so what philosophers are doing, they are not doing anything new. They are doing the same thing that all humans are doing. Okay, means we are not doing different things, we are doing things differently. Okay, we are doing the same thing that humans are doing, but we are doing it a bit more carefully, more systematically, and more critically. And that's critical thinking is very important for a research work, because this makes you skeptical, means this makes you doubt your conclusion, and this makes you free from cognitive biases. And one line for Williamson that I always cite with his students, that philosophy is one of greatest sources of my pleasure and pain. Okay, thank you. I shall stop.
Yes, Tapon, are you present? Tapon? Tapon, are you present? Okay, thank you very much, Sanjay. You have actually get the background of the whole thing, and it's very interesting to learn mainly the aspect of that is our different types of academic biases. It is very important to hear from you. And now we invite Dr. Prashant Sukla from Lucknow University, and we are eager to hear from him. He will be discussing many things, and all the participants, I will request you, please bear with us, and he will make you understand the whole thing once again. Without killing time, I will request Dr. Prashant to begin his lecture. Dr. Prashant.
Thank you, sir. Before starting the discussion, let me thank the organizers, especially Professor Santosh sir, for providing such an esteemed platform, and then to discuss along with some of the very esteemed scholars like you and Dr. Sanjay ji, and all the research scholars who are present here. So at the very outset, let me give a disclaimer. A lot of things have already been covered by Professor Santosh sir and Dr. Sanjay sir. So you might see a little bit of overlapping here and there, which is quite natural, I guess. And then I would be skipping some of the things so as not to repeat the same thing time and again, so as to save our time as well. So as we start, or we come to the topic of giving a research proposal, I prefer to start with the very famous definition given by Kurlinger, given in your chat box. So Frederick Kurlinger says, research is a systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigation of some hypothetical propositions about the presumed relationship among natural phenomena. So we, in the process of research, are trying to establish a sensible and consistent connection between different phenomena as and where available. Now, to discuss research methodology in the field of philosophy becomes more important as compared to other disciplines, because like you can have the same methodology for most of the social sciences. Maybe it's economics, you can talk about anthropology or sociology or psychology, not with philosophy. What is that which makes philosophy distinct and different from other disciplines? That's problematic. As Sanjay sir has already said, and I just like to repeat it again, after spending overall 16 years in the field of teaching and academics and philosophy, if somebody would ask me, give me a single liner definition of what philosophy is, or what are you doing in the department of philosophy? Well, I'm confused, because I cannot just give a single line definition of philosophy as it is possible of any other discipline. Well, a professor of chemistry might say that we study the chemicals and their interrelationship. A professor of sociology may claim that sociology means the study of social statistics and social dynamics. A professor of geology may claim that we talk about the things on and inside the Earth's crust. But what can be a single liner definition of philosophy? Actually, there can be none. And that is why W.T. Stace said that the definitions of philosophy kept on being changing with different ages. So that definition or understanding of philosophy which we had in the ancient times is not the same as that of the medieval times, and then in the modern times, and then the postmodern times. So even the definition or the content of the philosophy has changed a lot over a period of time. And if so, what do we exactly mean by research methodology in philosophy? What are we doing here, or what are we going to do, what our intention is? I'm just trying to make this discussion more interesting in front of you, as a humble attempt of mine. So I'm just going to share one particular image with you. And okay, let me ask you a funny question, simply so as to make you more engaged in the upcoming discussion. Is the picture available, or can you see it? Any one of you?
Yes, available.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the question might seem so kiddish to you, but still, I would prefer to ask the question. What is that which is shown in the sketch or the picture? Any one of you? Maybe you can write in the chat box, or maybe you can just open your mic. A mouse?
Mouse.
Yeah, Sushmita ji, you are right. And then I would just say, just hold on for a moment. The question might be a tricky one, since it is being discussed in the parlance of philosophy. Can there be such a simple answer of this question? Well, the answer is yes and no. Yeah, Shruti ji, you have raised your hand.
Yes, I think it's a matter of interpretations. Many can have many different looks of it. So one can say that it's a mouse. One can say that it's a sort of curvy lines are matched up together, and many other answers can be there.
Okay. Well taken point. Thank you. What if I say, look again at the picture, as I have already said? And when Sushmita ji says, this is a mouse, I would say, look again, this is actually not a mouse, but the picture of a mouse. Isn't it? And if that is the case, how come it happened that we just looked at the picture and immediately we said, well, this is a mouse? Why was the answer so obvious to us? It was maybe simply because of the reason that we can identify the general traits of the mouse in this particular sketch, isn't it? So I'm not talking about a wild mouse or a rat or a hamster or a moving mouse or a biting mouse. I'm simply saying the picture of a mouse, which means whatever the species of mouse I'm talking about, the general traits of all are compiled in the abstract form in this particular sketch. I hope you all agree to that. So I would stop presenting this picture right now. Now, I would simply say, to create such a general picture, it might be in the form of a diagram, a sketch, a picture, or a linguistic picture, maybe a linguistic sketch. To create such a conceptual definition, which you can apply later, is the one and only task of philosophy. And that is why, once we learn that philosophy means the love of wisdom, because it is made up of two Greek terms, philo and sophia, and if you go through History of Philosophy by A.C. Grayling, so it is clearly mentioned that the term sophia here means not only wisdom, but the theoretical wisdom. Of course, it might be applied later and it should be applied later. But at the very outset, sophia means theoretical wisdom. And that is why the simplest definition of philosophy, for me at least, would be philosophy is the conceptual analysis of the term. Right now, Dr. Sanjay sir have used an example where some of the philosophers have mentioned that morality is a virtue, but it is more present in the men than the women. And then he said that some of the other philosophers used the empirical evidences to negate or counter the first position. Now, the point is that an argument cannot be countered by the empirical evidence. It will become a category mistake. So a proper and consistent argument is to be countered only by another consistent argument. So to present these arguments is the prima facie task of the philosopher. And that is why we keep on repeating that there should be a dialogue, there should be shastrarth, there should be samvad. So I would use the Hindi term, one of that. Of course, everybody would be knowing. I would try to be as simple as that. The moment you would say, ye dekhiye, just have a look, you are not doing philosophy. I'm sorry to say that. Because ye dekhiye is an empirical device. It is a part of a lot of many other disciplines, and we do accept them. But in the field of philosophy, this ye dekhiye, have a look, won't work. Rather, it would say, ye sochiye. Of course, dekhiye, to see, might be an advantage. It might be an accessory which come in the support, but this is not the primary task of the philosophy. Maybe that is the reason that Wilfrid Seller said that philosophy is the study of how the things are related with each other in the most general sense of the term. So the general sense is important. Some of the thinkers would also say that philosophy is the study of how we move from the concrete to the abstract. So maybe you can say it as the science of abstraction. So if you have been discussing with a sociology teacher, and if the teacher asks, what is a pen? Or maybe the pen which is in my hand. So maybe a sociology teacher might say a pen is of blue color, because right now I am having a blue color pen in my hand. It weighs maybe 20 grams. It costs around 20 bucks. And might be a person of physics should also look at the pen from the senses, and on the basis of empirical evidence, the answer would come out. But a philosopher is not interested in the definition of an individual pen. Rather, we want to construct, create, critically analyze the definition of penness, what I prefer to call as the general idea of pen. And this is precisely the task of a philosopher. Not only this, when Wilfrid Seller says how the things are connected to each other, so you can make a thought experiment. See, we philosophers have to make a lot of thought experiments because we do not have the actual lab. We cannot go for the field work. We cannot take the methodologies of sample survey, questionnaire, interview, so forth, and etc., etc. So what we have at our resource is only two things. मैं लखनऊ से आता हूँ, so I prefer उर्दू. So हम यहाँ पे कहते हैं कि दर्शन करने के लिए आपके पास दो ही चीजें हैं, आपका जहन और आपकी जुबान. So you have two resources at your disposal. You have your mental capacity by which you can do conceptual analysis, and then your command over language. We don't have any third resource with us. And that is why the philosopher prefers to do not the experiments, but the thought experiments. So even our lab is here inside our minds, if we can be connected to each other, right? And our language is the monitor by which we can display what is going on inside our mind. That is why a philosopher person prefers to use a lot of examples. You have to remember, these examples used are not philosophy. They are simply an aid by which I can express my deeper thoughts in front of the audience in a more simple, fluid, and lucid manner. And that is why the discipline of philosophy is definitely unique, distinct, and exclusive. If it is so, if you are agreeing with me up to now, I hope you are. So this also becomes quite obvious that the research methodology which should be used, which ought to be used in the field of philosophy, cannot be the same research methodology which is used in other social sciences. In fact, in the very beginning, Professor Santosh sir has used a very interesting remark. He said that in philosophy, we try to answer the questions related to what, how, and why. And I totally agree with him, because these are precisely the three aspects of the discipline what we prefer to call at philosophy. What we do in the field of ontology or metaphysics, that answers the curiosity of what. That is why we talk about what is the ultimate substance, what are the Mahabhutas, what are the atoms or the Anu, what is the Brahma, and so on and so forth. The question of how is answered in our epistemological discussions. Even if that is there, or if it is not there, how come you know that? Do you know it through your senses? Are the senses credible? If not senses, what else? Is it argument? Is every argument credible? If not, then what are the flaws in the argument? What are the limits of our process of knowledge? Can intuition and revelation be accepted as the epistemological devices? If yes, why? If not, why? So the what is answered in metaphysics, how is answered in epistemology, and then, of course, the question of relevance comes there. Why are you seeking such a knowledge? This might be answered in the field of ethics and morality, sometimes also in the field of socio-political studies, but not more than that. So we have to be cautious of, we have to be clear about what we are doing, and we should also be clear about what we are not supposed to test our capacity in. So what is inside our boundary, our capacity, and what is outside our boundary, the complete realization of our capacity would make us a good philosopher. That being said, let us come to discuss about the research proposal. Now, before starting the discussion on how to prepare a research proposal, let me make a very clear assertion. In the field of academics, your research is the most important aspect or the step you will go through, and I assure you, the tag of the particular research which you are going to adopt is going to stay with you throughout your academic life. You cannot get rid of that. Even now, if I go somewhere for a new job in the field of academics, suppose I want to change my city or I want to experiment with my career, the very first question which would be asked from me is, what was your research on? That is, what was your research topic? Who was your supervisor? What is your area of expertise? And most of the time, these days, once you go to apply for a particular post in academics, there is a special column which would ask you, what is your area of specialization? And believe me, you cannot randomly pinpoint in any area and say that this is my area of specialization. Your research is your actual area of specialization. So I would again insist, think, ponder over your topic of research, take a lot of time to finalize it. But once you have finalized, stick to it. Never waver from that. Never have a doubt in your mind. Whatever the doubt is there, just practice it, just discuss it before that. Once selected, it will be your topic. In fact, I just remember one of my experience that sometimes back I used to discuss with my students in a joking manner. I would say that, remember, pursuing proper PhD research is just like getting married. Once you get married, stick to that. Later on, someone pointed to me that nowadays even marriages are not permanent, so you shouldn't use this example. So if it is the case, I admit my mistake. But still, what I wanted to say here is simply that research is so crucial that it demands a lot of time. It deserves a lot of time. And by respecting your research work, you are respecting yourself as a researcher and later on as an academician. And that is why your research proposal, which is like a blueprint of whatever you are going to do in the next 2.5 years, is so crucial for your academic journey. Now, that being said, allow me to come to my presentation. Okay. I hope the slide is visible to all.
Yeah, now visible. Now visible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And again, my request is you can interrupt me anytime in between if I'm not clear at any particular point. You can write the question in the chat box, and I would like to take the question immediately. Because what happens that once we have discussed for an hour or so, some of the things might skip from our mind. So the topic is, as we have already discussed, how to prepare a proper research proposal. What research? Why research? So, as we have already discussed, research is a systematic, rigorous, and methodical process of inquiry aimed at discovering, interpreting, and revising our facts, theories, and applications. It involves the collection, analysis, and interpretation of data or information to answer specific questions, solve problems, or contribute to a body of knowledge. Of course, research can be conducted in various fields, including science, social science, humanities, and more, and it often follows established methodologies to ensure validity and reliability. Points well taken. But now we are going to look at the research from the glasses, from the lens of a philosopher, and let's see where we stand. So here is a research proposal chart we prepared a long time back, and it consists of all the statements, all the steps, that is the mind map, which you are going to follow in the process of preparing your research proposal. As you can see, all in all, it consists of 6 broad steps. Of course, there are many subsections within the bigger subsections. So the first is introduction, which should answer the typical philosophical questions of what, how, and why. So in the introductory part, there should be a proper research question. And on the basis of that research question, there should be a summary of what you are proposing. Now, let me again, I'm just trying to be a little bit funny so as to keep you interested. I can understand you have been listening to us for the last 2.5 hours. So I have to do something or else so that your interest is still engaged in the presentation. Remember, we call it research proposal. Okay, forget about the term research. Let's focus on the term proposal. You are proposing someone. And if you are proposing someone, maybe like in the case of a job proposal or a marriage proposal, how do you do that? You try to put your best foot forward, right? आप अपना सबसे अच्छा हिस्सा दिखाना चाहते हो. Why? Because you want to convince, you want to pursue, you want to make the other person agree with your outlook in whatever manner possible. So now here there is an adjective with the term proposal. It is a research proposal. So who you are trying to woo? Who are the people you are trying to convince? Who are the people who you are trying to pursue? These are the academicians. These are the people who are your colleagues, your teachers, your fellow members, and so on. These are the technical people, right? And if they are technical people, you have to remember your language has to be technical. Well, I might be wrong, and if it's my subjective stand, forgive me, Professor Santosh sir and Dr. Sanjeev sir, but that's what I have learned over my years of experience, that once you are writing a PhD research proposal, never try to be simple or layman's language. No, that is not your task. You are not going to write a journalistic article. You are not writing to get published in a newspaper. You are not writing a pulp fiction. You are not trying to become Chetan Bhagat. You are a researcher, and your language should be heavy enough. It should be technical enough to carry the burden of your heavy thoughts. You have to frequently use the vocabulary of a philosopher. Why should we avoid that? A person of medicine would never avoid from using the technical language of medicine. A person of literature would of course use the flowery language due from the person. Why shouldn't a philosopher use the simple language? I say no. Your language should be as technical as your research proposal is. And I prefer to say to my students, forgive my guts to say that, make such a research proposal which can be read, which can be understood only by a trained philosopher. Why so? You are not making the research proposal to convince a layman. You are not making a research proposal to convince your uncle and aunt, your your school friends. Your proposal is made because you have to convince a trained academician. And the best way to do it is use the trained language. As I said, put your best foot forward. Give the impression that you know philosophy, you know your subject, you know what you are going to do, and you are well aware of the technical terms frequently used by the philosophers. And that should be shown in your research topic. I'm afraid I'm not daring too much, but that's how it is for my understanding. Once you have done that, you come to the literature review. Why and how? Because it happens with most of us, and in most of the times, वो होता है ना philosophy में कि we think about something and we start patting our back. Wow, what a beautiful way I have thought. What a novel problem I have discovered. And it happened with me a lot of times that I thought that I have discovered something new in the field of philosophy. And I used to rush to my teachers or maybe my supervisor or my senior colleagues to say that, look, how smart I am. I have discovered something new which nobody has done before. And then in a cold temperature dialogue, my seniors would just suppress my enthusiasm by saying, well, congratulations, but I'm afraid to inform you that you are not the first to think about this. Many philosophers, many years ago have talked about this, have read about this, have written about this. And then usually my heart used to get broken. Have I done nothing new? And then my supervisor would smile and say, yes, you have still done something new, because there is still possibility that you may look at the same problem with a new lens, with a new methodology, or with a new approach. And in that way, you can give a novel understanding of the same fundamental foundational problem which has been discussed by others. So what? Your outlook, your standpoint, your methodology makes it a new research problem. So as to be aware that this problem has already been discussed, so as to get rid of the arrogance which comes to us that we are the first one to discuss this problem, literature review is very important. Once you do literature review, you save a lot of energy and time, and of course, you get some experience. Remember, your literature review provides you the Uttar Paksha by the Khandan or by the Parishkar of which you can give, the literature review gives you the Purva Paksha, the prior standpoint, by the Khandan, that is the refutation, or by the Parishkar, that is the refinement of which you can present your own point of view, which would become the final position or the Uttara Paksha. And once we philosophers say final, it does not technically means final. It means final as if up to now. Because our statements are always open-ended statements. There is no closure. There is always the possibility of further refinement by our coming generation. And that is why literature review is very important, really important, as the second step. And then comes the methodology. How are we going to do that? You have to talk about research design, research procedure, the kind of data you will be using, what would be the collection procedure, and what would be the review, what would be the ethics statement, and so on and so forth. I will come back to that later. Step number 4 would be the preliminary data. As I have already said, your Purva Paksha. You also have to realize that what is the statement of your limitations, what are the alternatives, what are the weaknesses, and what is the point, what is the exact limit at which you are supposed to stop. Because if you don't stop at that point, you keep on carrying, you'd fall into the same trap as Immanuel Kant said. Our region gets the arrogance. Somendraji, of course, the PPT has already been given to Santosh sir. He will be sharing with you later. So rest assured for that. So yes, we have to know our limitations as well, because as Kant has said, if you do not know your limitations, as reason has done, unknowingly, you will pass on from the phenomena to the noumena. And if you dare to do that, the only thing you would be left with is nothing else but illusion, dilemma, ambiguity, confusion. So as not to fall an easy prey to such a mistake, our research proposal should also mention what are the delimitations, what are the weaknesses, what are the restrictions of our proposed research. And then finally, the conclusion. By the term conclusion, I mean, what are your exact research findings? Philosophy research cannot simply be historical or expository. You are not simply going to read a particular text or look at a particular issue and just write it down in black and white. You have to give your own input. And that input would, of course, come in the conclusory part, in the way of the research finding. So believe me, whenever I go for the Viva of any PhD student, of course, other formalities are there. But what I am actually looking for is the original research finding, which are presented by the scholar in the section known as the conclusion. If it is good, I may overlook other mistakes if there are any. If it is not there, no matter how good your structure is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get impressed. So you have to give your original research findings, whatever you have understood as if up to now, backed up by a proper consistency of argument. So before starting, we have to know in which particular category your research is going to fall in. This classification of research is done in 3 different ways. Either classification by purpose of research, or classification by method of research. And I'm not talking about methodology. Don't get confused between method and methodology. And third, by type of evidences required and method of analysis. Here comes the term methodology when I say method of analysis. So let us take them one by one. The first one is classification by purpose. Now, this point has already been discussed by the previous 2 esteemed speakers, so I would not go in detail. So on the basis of purpose, there are 5 different kind of researches. The first, which is known as basic or pure research, which is concerned with the production of research and finding which led to development of a new theory. The second is applied research, which is conducted with the purpose of applying or testing a theory in practice. and I know if I would say this, with the risk of irritating some of you, Santosh sir, yes. Can we count introduction, research, problem, and conclusion as chapters, or keep them independently? Okay, sir, I'm just coming to that problem. But I just want to complete what I started, because it is a very risky statement which I'm going to make now. And some of you might love me for that, and some of you might hate me for that. But I'm still adamant on that point when I say you cannot do applied philosophy. What you can actually do is application of philosophy. Of course, you can call application of philosophy as applied philosophy, and we have absolutely no problem with that. Because जब संतोष सर ने कहा कि philosophers आर्म चेयर philosophy करते हैं, कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि philosophers किताबी बातें कहते हैं, तो my firm standpoint is, of course we do armchair philosophy. Of course we do kitabi baatein. Because unless and until you make a theory, how can you put it in practice? Because if you don't have a theory, how will you come to know that you are going on the right track or not? See, milestones don't have any applicability, no practicability. But milestones make sure that we are going on the right track, how much distance we have covered, and how much distance is left in our journey. That, of course, comes with Sophia, that is the theoretical knowledge. And yes, this is always a question whether we should include introduction and conclusion as separate chapters, or we should keep them independently. Sir, different academicians have different kind of approach on this. Like once we pursued research in JNU, there was a trend that introduction and conclusion should also be treated like the proper chapters. However, later on I learned, and I got convinced by the argument of my senior academicians, who said that introduction and conclusion should not become the part of the chapters. In fact, introduction and conclusion are absolutely independent. That is why the rules we apply on the chapters in the form of in-text citation, the endnote, and the indentation and other things. These in-text citation and these endnotes need not necessarily apply to introduction and conclusion, because introduction is historical, factual, exposition based, and conclusion is the research scholar's own original authentic work. So I would not treat them as rituals like the chapters where all the rules and regulations are to be followed. But sir, this is my personal view. I'm not sure whether others will agree with me or not. So you can take it as my point of view. Thank you, sir. So coming back to our slides. So the first is the basic or the pure research. Second is applied research. Third is the action research, where we are directed towards solving a specific problem in a local setting. I would just like to take some time of yours here, because I am of the opinion that you can use philosophy as a tool in action research, but a philosophical research cannot ever be an action research. Again, this is my personal view. I again plead apology if my subjective opinion goes against anyone else's understanding. But that is what I have learned. Why so? Because action research can be performed only in a particular contextual local setting. And as I have already said, I as a philosopher am not talking about the pen, I'm talking about penness. I'm not talking about the bottle, I'm talking about the bottleness. I'm not talking about the cup, I'm talking about cupness. How can I make a research as a philosopher in a local setting? I believe no. Of course, your research findings may be very useful, very, very relevant for any other action research. Or even if you are so adamant are doing action research, make it a kind of triangulation research or a mixed research, which would be a proper harmony or balance of quantitative and qualitative research. But if you claim that you would make a pure action research on the quantitative methods, I would say no. That is absolute impossibility in the field of philosophical research proposal. The fourth one is, as you can see, evaluation research. Yes, this we can very well do, and we can claim it to be a kind of applied philosophy, and I here mean application of philosophy. The purpose is the evaluation in the process of decision making. And finally, the sole purpose where is to make research and development. As we all know, this is aimed at developing and testing some product or idea or theory to ensure their effectiveness. So this is the classification by purpose. Your research has to fall in one of the categories, and you should have consistent argument to say why my research is pure or why my research is applied. Then classification by method. As I already said, there are three types of research. Either you would be doing a qualitative research, which is measurable research, or you might be doing a quantitative research. Sorry, qualitative is not measurable, not computational. It is the quantitative research which is measurable. And then the triangulation research. As Strawson says, qualitative research is always based on second order inquiry, and the quantitative research is based on the first order inquiry. The triangulation research is a proper merger of both of them, done in a systematic or a rigorous manner. So we have to understand that if I'm talking about philosophy of religion, and I'm going to do a research on God, I cannot talk about the God of the Hindus or the Muslims or the Christians or the Parsis or the Jews, because that would be decided in the local setting. That might be the job of religion, that might even be the job of sociology, that might be the job of anthropology. But when I'm talking about, yeah, okay, sir, I'm just coming on that, because I'm discussing second order inquiry, and that is why in a way I'm focusing on qualitative research. Thank you, sir. So when I'm talking about, let's say, God, or you can take any topic, I'm not talking about a God, rather I'm talking about the God. So actually my question is not about this God or that God, rather what do you mean by the term God? God within the single inverted comma, because I have used the term, that is a picture, a sketch. And how would I respond to that? For responding, I would try to generate a universal definition, a definition which would fulfill the expectations of all the people who think or who talk about God. In the same manner as I talked about cup. Actually, this is my child's cup, so you can see the picture. But yes, a cup is a cup. It cannot be a daddy cup or a baby's cup, isn't it? It need not necessarily be a ceramic cup. It might be a metal cup or a glass cup or whatever it is. So my definition should be like this. It should be a general definition in the sense that if you understand the definition, you can recognize any particular cup or a mug with that definition. Remember, in the Indian culture, once we talk about Upaman as a Praman, I get so much fascinated with the idea of Upaman. I'm sure everybody knows here. So I don't know about the Gavai, but the definition of Gai or the cow has been given to me in such a consistent manner that the moment I enter the woods, I enter the jungle, and I see a creature With the help of that definition, I can immediately identify that this is a gavai, what we call as a Nilgai. Why? Because I had sufficient definition given by a really learned philosopher, and that definition gives me enough raw material, enough content to identify that creature as a gavai. That is precisely the task of a philosopher. So, for doing that, as a philosopher, since I'm doing a qualitative research, I need not move out of my armchair. I know I'm making a very risky statement. I need not move out of my armchair. Why so? Because if I use the term data collection, my data collection only comes in the form of text collection. The actual empirical data collection is not my job as a philosopher. So, how will I get the data? I will get the data from other disciplines because it is the task of other disciplines to do the first order inquiry. That is why the other disciplines are permitted to do sample survey, questionnaire, interviews, and so on. So I will take the data from them and apply it in framing a consistent argument. In fact, that is the reason. Once we do the qualitative research, we keep it in the boxes like philosophy of science, philosophy of mind, philosophy of language, philosophy of religion. By uttering the term philosophy of science, I never claim to become a scientist. I'm still a philosopher. But I am making a conceptual analysis of the vocabulary, the language, the data frequently used in the field of science. And that is why I say I'm not doing science, but a philosophy of science. I cannot become a linguistic, I cannot become a literature. But once I use the primary data of literature, language, semantics, syntax, I do philosophy of language. So goes with the philosophy of religion. And that is why a philosophical research is necessarily a qualitative research. Or if you are becoming too adventurous or experimentative, you are permitted to make a mixed research. That is a triangulation research. But a philosopher cannot make a purely quantitative research. Why so? Because for doing so, you have to make a first order inquiry. And first order inquiry has never been a forte of a philosopher. Of course, you can make a joke of me by saying that he is talking like a blind thinker who is searching for a black cat in a dark room. Well, yes. But believe me, if I am blind, you allegate me as blind, it goes to my advantage. Because now I can weigh the things without any biasness, without any coloring, without any prejudice. And that is how, in Dr. Sanjay sir's term, I would be really critical. I just remember the veil of ignorance argument given by none other than John Rawls. He says, this veil of ignorance, this blindness, this avoidance of empirical data is not a limitation of philosopher. It is a blessing for philosophy, and philosophy scholars, because that is how you become impartial, neutral, and critical. And that is why we prefer qualitative research. Then the third one is triangulation research, where if the need be so, you can make a mixed research. Most of the time it works in when you have chosen the topic of socio-political nature or you have chosen a topic of applied nature. Then we make a mixed research. But I would again like to emphasize a philosophy scholar should never go for a purely quantitative research. That is a strict no-no. Have I been clear up to now? Shall I move further? Or is there any doubt?
It's okay. You can move on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So that being said, we have understood the classification of a research by purpose or by method. And then comes the third one, which is which is dear to my heart, classification by evidence or method of analysis. It has been already said by the previous esteemed speakers that you can philosophize in different ways. That is not the method, but methodology here. And I quote here none other than most esteemed Professor K. Sachidanand Murthy. So in his famous work, Philosophy in India, Traditions, Teaching and Research, a very good book, easily available on Amazon. I believe every research scholar should read this book. So Professor Murthy proposes that philosophical research can be practiced in three distinct ways. You can call them as modes or approaches of engaging in philosophy, highlighting different manners in which philosophers can address the questions or the concepts or the dilemmas. The first is speculative philosophy. This involves the exploration of abstract concepts and ideas through rational speculation and logical reasoning. In this field, philosophers strive to develop new theories or framework or system of thoughts that clarify the nature of our reality, our existence, and our knowledge. So for this, a lot of hypothetical scenarios, experiments, and logical deductions can be pursued in a meticulous manner, of course. The second is analytical philosophy, like that which has been pursued by the supporters of what we prefer to say the philosophy of language or the philosophy of mind. People like Russell, Quine, Strawson, Peirce, Whitehead, Wittgenstein prefer this kind of philosophy. If you go to Indian field, these were the Mimamsikas.
Hena Khatun, Hena, audio off karo. Audio, please off your audio. Switch off your audio.
Sorry.
Hena.
So, analytical philosophy is distinguished by its focus on the clarity of language and the logical examination and the meticulous argumentation. Philosophers working in this tradition aim to deconstruct intricate issues into smaller parts, analyze each part systematically, and then resolve the conceptual confusion. The third one is continental philosophy. Of course, we all know. We can go to hermeneutics, we can go to phenomenology, we can go to sophism, or we can go to existentialism, even feminism, or any other such related issue. So continental philosophy focuses on existential, subjective, and interpretive methods for addressing philosophical issues. In this tradition, philosophers delve into subjects such as human experience, culture, society, and personal identity. They frequently engage with literature, arts, aesthetics, history, even socio-political contours to understand human existence and the meaning of human understanding. You can find it, if you talk about Indian philosophy, you can go to Buddhism. But it is crucial here to recognize that these modes or approaches are not airtight division, and numerous philosophers blend elements from various philosophical approaches in their works. So, what I want to emphasize here is that once you start your work, you have to be clear in your mind which particular approach you are going to favor. Are you going to make a speculative research? It is perfectly okay. Are you going to make an analytical research? That is also perfectly okay. Or you can make a continental research, or you might make a overlapping research where some of the elements of analytical and merging with some of the elements of speculative or continental. Nothing wrong with that. My request is you should know what you are doing. You should know your recipe. Otherwise, every method which you are using is perfectly okay and admissible in the field of philosophy. Now, by after doing this kind of homework, now comes the title. I would not go in detail because this thing has already been discussed by Sir, and the PowerPoint would also be there with you. But still, my point here would be that remember, your topic is like the trailer of your movie. So your topic should be very catchy, very attractive to the people, and at the same time, a technical one. If you go to any of the universities abroad, so you see Yale's or you see Capodistrian, you see Oxford or Trinity or even MIT, they offer such courses which catch the attention of the students and then they enroll for those courses. In the same way, you have to offer your thesis in such a beautiful wrapping that it should catch the attention of the readers. Only then the people will come to you. I know I'm talking about a very difficult task, which is usually not preferred in Indian academia, but I still insist. I remember at a time when I wanted to float a course on critical thinking and logical reasoning, an interdisciplinary course in my university, and I gave it the name, How to Win Your Argument, 3 question marks. And I'm ashamed to discuss with you that this title was outrightly rejected by the committee, saying that this title is so glossy. It shouldn't be like that. But yes, a little bit of glossiness is required for our audience. So once you make the topic, thumb rule number 1, if you wish, whatever your title is, it may be converted in the form of a question. It's the thumb rule. If your title has not got the potentiality to get converted in the form of a question, your title is redundant. Leave it. You are not writing an essay. You are not making a graduation assignment. You are going to do a research. And if you are going to do a research, there should be a research problem. And the sign of the problem is that it can be presented in the form of a question mark. Your title should not use ambiguous words. It should not be circular. It should not be so small that it can be generalized. It should not be so long that it becomes over specific. So it should be presented in a very balanced and thoughtful manner. So that is what we talk about the title, then the topic. So what is the significance of the study? A research problem which you are going to propose should show the worth and urgency of the study. The need for undertaking a research study may be shown as follows. Number 1, to show the time lapse between earlier study in the same area and the present one, and therefore the need for new knowledge. Number 2, to show that there are considerable gaps in the knowledge provided in the previous research. Number 3, to show the lack of information about a problem presenting in the supporting statements of other similar research studies. And number 4, to relate it to the existing social issues and to the priority areas in the context of national and international educational developments. So there can be application of philosophy, there can be the relevance of philosophy. So then we come to the statement of the problem. The problem of research is stated either in a question or in a categorical form. Categorical form means, as you all know, a person may say yes or no to that. Don't make it ambiguous. Nobody should be allowed to say that, well, maybe yes or maybe no. No, it should be categorical. Here the caption of the study is indicated. It should follow the meaning of the problem in a simple, non-technical and convincing language. Then we come to the hypothesis or the research question. Questions that the research is designed to answer. The hypothesis suggests either the tentative solution to the problem or the likely relationship between dependent and independent variables. This hypothesis or research question is tested through the research, through the overall research, and either accepted or rejected. So whatever your hypothesis you formed, If it is accepted, established, well and good. If it is rejected, still it is good for you because you have rejected it after making a proper, consistent research. And finally, in some non-experimental research, it is possible to formulate hypotheses and test them, but at times, some research workers prefer to raise certain research questions and try to answer them on the basis of evidence collected. If you do say, prefer to use the mixed research. We have to be very much clear about the definition of the key terms, concepts and variables. आप लोग जब research paper लिखते हो, then it is asked that give an abstract and the key terms. Why it is asked? Because key terms are something which you might understand in a different manner and the reader might understand it in some other manner. So you have to make it clear at the very outset, this is the meaning I am using in my research proposal. That is why the key terms and the concepts are there. And then, as I have already said, the delimitation should be made clear by the researcher at the very outset. As we have seen, later on you have to make a chapter division. It is a tentative chapter division, but it should give a clear impression that you know your work. You know how to divide the entire discussion. You have the mind map, the flow chart already prepared in your mind. That is why the tentative chapter division is there. And then comes the bibliography. Well, bibliography is important because preparing a good bibliography in a research proposal is crucial for demonstrating the depth of your research and the scholarly context of your research. I will be quick, but I want to share one of my experience. Whenever a research proposal comes to me, either in the university or in some fellowship interview, first of all, I make a cold reading of the proposal. Cold reading here means I will not be looking at the consistency of the argument. I will just read it down and look at the formatting. And here, my focus is on the bibliography. If your bibliography is consistent, intact, and relevant, I get the first impression that the researcher is serious. In the second reading, I go for the argument provided by the researcher scholar. And then in the final or the third reading, I try to evaluate the proposal critically. So as you can see, bibliography is analyzed in the very first reading. So make sure that your bibliography is appropriate. Remember that most of the time, though at some times we can use MLA or Caribbean as well, or Chicago, but in most of the international universities, they demand APA 7th style citation. So please be aware of that if you are serious for your business, what you are going to do. So you can use some of the tools and there is nothing wrong in that. You can use Zotero, you can use EndNote, or you can use Mendeley, which will systematize your references. There is nothing wrong, it is perfectly legal. You can follow the required citation style as given by your university or given by your supervisor and the head of the department. But I still insist that the APA 7th style citation is the most important, recommended and acceptable citation style right now. Then you have to refer to the style guide. In case you don't have and you want it, I can send you the entire style guide. But I am also going to share a sample proposal with you, which is going to give you all the details. So take care of that. Now the style of citation. In the general format, as we have already done, the author's last name comes first, then the year, then the page number. For example, Kant, 1998, page 124. Now this thing will go in the in-text citation. You are not supposed to go give it in the footnote or the endnote. So I will simply write Kant, 1998, page number 124, within the paragraph or as the paragraph ends. You might ask, where Kant has said so. So the detail of this particular book of Kant would be mentioned in the references or bibliography at the end. Footnotes are not allowed, but in the 70 style citation, endnotes are required. And if everything, the references are given in the in-text citation, what are endnotes for? See, there are some ideas which might be coming in your mind as a supplement to your argumentative flow, but you want to discuss it in the margin. So you will give these ideas in the form of endnotes. In endnotes, you are not going to give the page number and other things. Endnotes are simply supposed to be explanatory in nature. As far as the reference page is considered, the general format and the journal articles format has been given here. So you can discuss with it later. In case of online evidences, we all know that we are not allowed to use the open educational resources. Even open, any kind of resources are not allowed. Wikipedia is a strict no here. Right now, you are not supposed to mention that at which particular date or day you accessed the page. You are simply supposed to give the DOI and it will be universally accepted as a valid reference. Now at the last, it is the task of a philosopher. With this, I would prefer to wind up. I hope you can see the slide. Can anyone suggest me what is given in the slide? I'm just sending. Can anyone suggest? You can write in the chat box. You can unmute yourself. What is that which is shown in the slide? Anyone? Okay. Now, actually the thing is so visible here, but what we are doing here is that we are not focusing on the exact problem. Puzzle, broken chain. Of course, it looks like that. Now, let me go to the last slide. So these are two words, fly and tie. So what was the difference between this slide and this slide? Maybe we were seeing, but we were not looking. So a philosopher's lens means you are looking at the problem in a detailed, a specific manner. And still you are trying to go to abstraction. So this is a double-edged sword on which the research proposal of a philosophy student goes. And well, I consider it as a boon as well as a bane. So it goes to your advantage as well as your disadvantage. Once you have completed your research proposal, there are two jobs which I would recommend. For initial success in your job as well as in research, you should side by side also go for paper writing. It will polish your style, your competency of writing. There should be accounting principles. You should manage your time and your researches in the form of mathematics and statistics. How much funding, how much time, how much resources are required by you, you should know that. For long-range job success, you have to manage a lot of things. You have to manage accounting and economics, meaning the funding. You should do a lot of paper writing. And then you have to do oral communication. Try to speak as much as possible. Because once you speak, you get more and more convinced with your argument. While writing, you are convinced in papers, but once you speak in front of others, you get new arguments, you get more and more convinced, and you also realize the weakness of your arguments. The most common weaknesses we all have while preparing a research proposal or later on is we do not have good communication skills. Of course, it can be improved with time. We do not have good writing skills. This also can be improved. Sometimes we are immature enough that we look at a topic, get fascinated by it, and make it the research topic, and later on we regret it. This also should be avoided. It takes time, of course. And last is unrealistic expectation. If you believe that you are going to do something about which no one has ever thought, well, my friends, you are living in a dream. A lot of work has been done. Do not think that you will complete your research proposal. It should immediately be approved. Do not think that your supervisor should approve each and everything you do. Do not think that the moment you will complete your research, you will get a job. These are unrealistic expectations which make us sad, which make us pessimistic. Don't do that. Your expectation should be real. Everything takes time. There is a reason why the earlier studies were in semesters or years, but for your PhD, you have been provided with minimal 3 years and maximum 5 years. Because good things require time. And that is my message to you. So thank you to all. Thank you for being patient with me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prashant. It is a very, very interesting discussion. And we people who teach philosophy and take some classes on research methodology, most of us think that we know everything, and there is none to communicate with you. And by doing this type of communication, I am very much benefited with you all, because it should be communicated each other. Otherwise, so many things that is Sanjay was speaking of confirmed, that I am already pre-confirmed, you can say that, this type of thing. So it is a very, very good discussion. And I have found no such wide range of discussion have been done in anywhere in India on this issue. We just think that we know everything and no one else have any, we need not have any suggestion from anywhere. And that is very important. I am really thankful to you all, you too, that you have been very actually as and when I tell you to speak on something, and Prashant and Sanjay do this. So thank you very much from our Forum for Applied Philosophy. And also I will request our students, our research scholars who are still with us, if there is any query, any clarification needed, you can ask them. We have 10 or 15 minutes for you. If you like, we can take 2 or 3 more minutes for your students. Prashant, do you have any question? Prashant Khan. Prashant, are you there? So now the session is open for some time. If anyone has any query from any quarter relating to the research proposal. Hello. Prashant Sardar. Hello. Any question? Then if there is no question, then we can wind up the whole discussion. Actually, it is a to be on the network for almost 3 hours is very difficult for many of us. There is a question of data. Most of our students use mobile data, which is very limited. It does not go beyond 1.5 years or 2 hours. So that is one question. Other thing is that you have to be involved, engaged in some step of your research. Otherwise, it is very difficult to understand all the things we are discussing. So thank you very much, you all. And we are available for any time. If you ask any particular question about a particular topic, we can help you. Sanjay, do you want to say something?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Then good night to all of you. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.